Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for this evening.
Thank you, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Takes us to our proclamations, commendations, petitions, and announcements. And the September Recycling Award recipient is Aaron and Ben Crowder at 244 North 6th Street in Bayport. And they will be awarded for their recycling efforts by a grant made possible from Washington County. So thank you very much, Crowders, for your recycling efforts. This takes us to a very special part of our meeting this evening. We are going to celebrate and acknowledge 20 years of service from firefighter Chuck Oswald, and I'd like to call on Chief Eisinger, please, to come forward.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. At this time, I'd like Chuck to join me up here. And Chuck, if you want to introduce your family, I know you've brought quite a few here.
Yeah, my wife Janet, her mom Dolores, dad Woody, my daughter Jennifer, my other daughter Jessica, there's another group, and then my grandsons Levi and Brody.
Well, thank you, Chuck. 20 years of service at the fire department is a significant event, and we appreciate everything Chuck did for us. And a few stories about Chuck. Chuck was a member of a team that pulled a person out of a burning building, rescued a person, and he received a life safety award for that. We commend him for that. Also, Chuck was a part of a team that recovered somebody from the river. He got wet in that case and was hospitalized for a little. But one of the things that really makes Chuck, unique is he's been a key part of the Santa event that we go through the day after Thanksgiving and lighting of the green, and so we appreciate that. So we really appreciate all the work you've done, and on the committees, especially for the building committee, he helped us with that. So we're going to miss him. So with that, I'll ask the mayor to come up.
And sacrificed on our behalf. Thank you so much for everything that you've done. 20 years in an all-volunteer fire department is just an unbelievable commitment, and thank you so much. So the certificate just reads, Chuck Oswald, thank you for 20 years of dedicated service to Bayport Fire Department and our community, 1999 to 2019. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As you know, the fire department's rich in tradition, and a member with 20 years of service, we give him his helmet, present you your helmet, Chuck, and your badge. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming and supporting Chuck in his celebration. So, and if you feel like coming back, I'm sure they'd let you. So, okay, well, now we're going to switch gears a little bit. We're going to go to our open forum where we set aside 15 minutes of the meeting to take in comments or questions from the audience on topics that are not on tonight's agenda. So would anyone like to come forward? Okay. If not, then we'll move on to our consent agenda. We're going to pause just a second to allow...
We got fire calls.
Oh, fire calls.
Oh, wow.
That's...
It's a good excuse for them to leave, right?
We'll just pause for just a second to allow people that are celebrating and our firefighters who are responding to exit. Okay. All right, so that moves us to our consent agenda. And we'll consider a resolution adopting items 1 through 7, which includes the September 9th, 2019 City Council Workshop Meeting Minutes, the September 9th, 2019 City Council Regular Meeting Minutes, the September payables and receipts, including checks numbers 011504 through 011614, September Building Plumbing Mechanical Permits Report, the hiring of Travis Lanander as our part-time police officer and para declaration, the renewal of a boat trailer parking permit with Anderson Corporation, and grant agreement with the Department of Natural Resources for volunteer fire assistance for the fire department. Are there any questions or comments or changes to the consent agenda? If not, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion approving tonight's consent agenda 1 through 7.
Thank you. Connie, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, John. Adam?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
Aye.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Mayor Sinors.
Aye.
Ayes all.
Great. So then we also have the pleasure this evening of another fun event, and that is to swear in our newest officer, Travis Lanander. And I'm going to call upon Chief to tell us a little bit about Travis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Mr. Lenander, as you might know, applied for this position December of 2018. He was part of the eligibility list and went through the interview process and scored among the highest. He passed all the required medical and psychological tests, and I think he'll be a great asset with his crisis intervention experience. Just a little history on him. He's currently employed with Regents Hospital as an emergency technician. Mr. Lenander comes to us with a variety of experience, both with Washington County Reserve and Savage Community Service Officer, as well as a licensed position there. So we're really excited to have all that experience, especially the emergency room technician portion. He's going to be a great asset. So with that, I hope that you'll swear him in at this time. I'll have him step up.
So, Adam, we don't have any other business. We just get to go forward with the swearing in?
Yes, on the consent agenda was the hire.
Super.
I, Travis Lenander, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Minnesota and faithfully discharge the duties of the office of peace officer of the city of Bayport and the county of Washington and state of Minnesota to the best of my judgment and ability. So help me God. Thank you.
I'm going to have his father, Roy, step up, and I also want to thank our cable staff that worked so hard to get us live streamed because his mother, Michelle, with one L, is at home watching. So thank you very much. Why don't you step up here, Roy, and pin on his badge. Thank you, sir.
No? All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks to our other officers for attending as well. Thank you. Okay, we do not have a public hearing this evening, and we do not have any unfinished business before the council. So our first item of new business is to consider an application submitted by Anderson Corporation for a variance from impervious coverage requirements for a parking lot and stormwater improvement project at 100 4th Avenue North. And Sarah, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Anderson Corporation campus is zoned industrial and guided for industrial use by the comprehensive plan. The proposed project involves resurfacing 2 existing gravel parking areas with a new bituminous surface and installing 2 rain gardens to infiltrate stormwater runoff. Because the Anderson Corporation was developed prior to the adoption of the city zoning code, much of the plant does not meet current standards, especially in regard to lot coverage requirements. For this reason, Anderson is requesting a variance to allow flexibility with impervious coverage to facilitate this project. This is a picture of the project map here on the screen. As depicted in red outlining, the project involves a north area located adjacent to Point Road and a south area located adjacent to the public boat launch off 4th Avenue North. The north parking area consists of approximately 1.4 acres. It'll be converted from gravel to bituminous surface, and the remainder will be converted to a vegetative green space to decrease the impervious surface and reduce stormwater runoff. This will result in a net of 1.3 acres impervious. The south parking area consists of 1.7 acres. This will also be converted from gravel to bituminous with an additional 150 square feet added to expand a drive lane and improve traffic in the area. 2 rain gardens will be constructed near the south parking area adjacent to the St. Croix River, resulting in a total reduction of 0.2 acres of impervious for the overall project. State statute dictates that a variance shall only be permitted by the city when in harmony with the general purposes and intent of the ordinance, consistent with the comprehensive plan, and practical difficulties prevent compliance with the zoning ordinance. In this specific case, staff feels the intent is to use the property in a reasonable manner not permitted by the zoning ordinance. There are circumstances unique to the property, and the variance will not alter the overall character of the neighborhood. As proposed, the parking lot improvements will not substantially alter the appearance of the site and actually result in increased compliance with current city code, which does require that off-street parking areas be surfaced with either asphalt or concrete. The rain gardens will also help enhance treatment of stormwater runoff, which is a positive improvement over the existing conditions. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this application on September 23rd. Following discussion, they voted to approve the variance, subject to findings of fact and conditions of approval recommended by staff. A resolution outlining the conditions of the variance is included with your packet tonight. Now I'd like to call on City Engineer John Perotti to review his comments on the project, and then following John's comments, staff and Todd, a representative from Anderson Corporation, is here to address any questions.
Great, John.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. There is a memo in your packet that should summarize the status of the engineering review. We had done an earlier memo. The applicant had made some revisions, and we subsequently revised the memo to respond to those revisions that were made. I think it's going to be most helpful if I just step back for a minute and address some of the most common questions that come up with an application like this. It was something that was well received at the Planning Commission meeting, and so if you don't mind, I'll just take that approach here this evening again. The upshot is that Anderson Windows needs to comply with their industrial stormwater permit, which is issued by the state of Minnesota. And that permit requires them to implement certain improvements over time to increase stormwater treatment, to decrease runoff, and to treat the runoff that does discharge from the site. We're looking for them to treat for things like total suspended solids. And gravel parking area is considered, in terms of impervious surface, is considered impervious, just like an asphalt or concrete surface is. Because when they're compacted and driven over, the runoff volumes coming off of those surfaces are about the same, similar anyways. Having said that, the water that runs off a paved surface tends to be quite a bit cleaner because it doesn't pick up as much fine sediment that is inherent in gravel surfaces. So if you took side by side, same size gravel and paved surface and monitored the runoff, quite a bit more sediment, fine sediment, would come off the gravel surface. So Anderson's project is seeking to improve the quality of the runoff from their site, their complex, if you will, by paving gravel surfaces. We generally accept that that is an improvement to the environment, and that it caps the gravel surface and contains all those fine particles that are a part of the gravel. Now the gravel will become part of the base, of course, and then this will be capped. So again, the two key points there from an engineering perspective here are that, the gravel surface is considered impervious, just like the pavement, like the asphalt paving will. So from a runoff standpoint, volumes should be about the same. And B, the paved surface will result in controlling some of the sediment that's currently running off the site, either directly or indirectly into the St. Croix River. So from that standpoint, we consider the proposed improvements to be an improvement to that condition. So with that, if there are any questions along the way or at this time here, I'd be happy to help respond to those.
Thank you, John. Is there any questions for Sarah or John?
Can I just clarify what you just said? So not only is there going to be slightly less impervious surface according to this 0.2 acres less, but that impervious surface is now going to not be gravel, so the runoff will be cleaner.
Correct.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody understands.
Right, and I didn't mention, I think Sarah did, but they did also include in their proposal the installation of two, should we call them optional rain gardens, and optional in the sense that they're not required by the city or the WMO or the state at this point. It's they're going above and beyond what's being required installing these rain gardens, and those will further help treat runoff before discharges, and that rain gardens are on the south lot.
And the other clarification is that they're still not in compliance with our impervious surface percentages because they were sort of grandfathered in at a certain point, or what would you call that?
Yeah, it's a good question whether you want to call it grandfathered or you want to call it these improvements were constructed prior to that ordinance being in effect. So some people don't like the term grandfathered. I guess I would defer to your attorney if that's an important distinction or not, but it sums it up.
Okay, and so even with these changes, they're still not compliant with the impervious surface percentages that the city would want them to have?
Well, that the city ordinance would otherwise require them to have. Right?
Thank you for, being more legal about it. Yes, okay.
So, may I also ask questions of our representative from Anderson?
Yep.
Would you like to come forward and
Sure.
introduce yourself? So, I appreciate very much that there's going to be an improved surface and that there are things that you're doing to help with that, contain the runoff in the rain gardens, even though they're optional, so I appreciate that very much. Now, as city streets, we typically do street sweeping a couple of times a year to gather up salt, sand, other sediments to keep those from going into our storm sewers and fill up our gardens. Do you do something like that every year? Do you clean off your surfaces?
We typically do, my name is Todd Nikleski. I'm an environmental engineer with Anderson Corporation. And yes, we do typically every spring have a large sweeping event to pick up mostly all of the sand that's left over from our winter sanding and salting operations. If there is a need for additional cleanings throughout the year, we will do them, but that's not always a routine thing. Okay, well,
good, thank you for that. And there's probably limited other ways that, that with that amount of surface to add in more green space or more rain gardens and such, but would Anderson consider adding in more screening, to separate the community from the parking lots and the community? You started with the efforts along 95. I'm just wondering if that was any conversation, because any green additions to our environment are beneficial to all. So sure. Not only aesthetically, but also environmentally. So
I would have to take that to our technical services director, but I believe that we have done quite a bit in the past, and I don't think we'd be hesitant to doing any additional plantings or things like that in the future.
That would be appreciated. Connie, John?
No, go ahead.
No.
So, hi Todd, nice to see you. So, in the interest of full disclosure, I'm employed by Anderson Corporation, but wearing my council hat, one of the things that always pops into my head, and I'm not an expert in this area, I'd love to hear from the city engineer and or Todd. I know pervious asphalt is an option. it's not a great option where there's heavy traffic area, but I know impervious asphalt is used in parking situations, and that can, it's definitely a cost penalty, but when we're at virtually 100% impervious coverage, I feel like, you know, and I would completely agree with what the mayor said in terms of rain gardens and going above and beyond, but maybe there's a little more room to go above and beyond. So I would just like to throw that out there and maybe hear from people with more experience than me on pervious asphalt and whether that was considered or not.
Yeah, so John and
I don't have any personal experience with pervious asphalt. I don't know if John has any.
Sure. Mayor, members of the council, we do have experience with porous pavements. They come in a variety of different solutions. There's pavers, there's, as council member mentioned, porous asphalt or pervious asphalt and concrete. They're all three available and used to varying degrees of success. You know, I would agree that in the heavy-duty traffic areas, they might not be the best fit there for a variety of reasons. One is there's some additional structure needed there, and the pavement takes a pounding. I just want to say that while trying something like that in the parking areas might be a little bit more appropriate, it is just to acknowledge that there is a considerable cost difference to the applicant for something like that. And it would be great if they would want to look at that as an option and see if it's something they can incorporate into their project. Maybe in the parking areas that are just exclusively commuter vehicles, that sort of loading would be a place that could be done. And in some areas we've seen where, for instance, the drive aisles are not pervious, but parking spaces themselves are. That would be an option. But again, just knowing that there's a considerable cost difference, I guess I would have to defer back to to Anderson Corporation as to whether it's something they feel like they can absorb.
does that help or?
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, it would be one thing on our impervious coverage, but we're in you know, understanding they've been there for 100 years and it's been built over all those years. We're not close, so I guess I feel like it's not an unreasonable expectation to want them to go. And frankly, I understand I want to be business friendly and friendly to neighbors, but the cost, quite frankly, isn't a consideration for me. That's the price of doing business, I guess. Is how I
So
feel
would
about
you
that.
be asking us to maybe postpone this and ask Anderson to come back with a slightly varied proposal?
I think that would be fair. At the same time, I will probably be abstaining from the vote based on any perceived conflict of interest being, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, Andy. And I don't know what you'd think about me even offering this kind of thing up with my councilman hat versus my Anderson employee hat on, but I certainly don't think it's unreasonable.
And
Mayor, just a thought, I don't want to leave out important information that could weigh into your decision one way or the other. Just so council is aware, porous pavements under our regulation don't offset your impervious surface calculation. Our ordinances don't really allow that. So in other words, if the hope with the impervious or with the pervious pavement is to decrease the overall imperviousness of the site, it doesn't do that from a regulatory standpoint. Now, understanding that there's a bit of a trade-off, I mean, you may not get to say, instead of being 99%, now we're 98%. You don't get that kind of credit, but we also understand that implementing something like that does change the runoff characteristics. So it does act for, the length of that, the life cycle, I should say, of that pavement, it will act a little bit more like a lower runoff site than it would otherwise. But it will not decrease the overall imperviousness from a calculation standpoint.
Do you know how close to pervious surface it actually is? Like, does the runoff, is it like 80% the same as if
Right.
it were like grass? Or-
Yeah, so that's a good question, and you have to chuckle every time. You probably heard an engineer say 1,000 times, "It depends," right? And that is the answer. It depends. We can do very aggressive porous pavements that store a lot of water and infiltrate a lot of water, and would act very much like a green space. And when you get into that aggressive a build, of course, the costs are really escalating. So some of those pavement designs are not intended to completely mimic a green space, but maybe they're just intended to reduce the runoff by 20% or something along those lines. So it runs the gamut in terms of what your options would be there. All cost more than what we're talking about with the current proposal, but the more you want it to act like green space, the costs go up.
Is there space on the edge of these surfaces where we could buffer? I know, it's, again, all green plants, matter, any kind of matter will help aesthetically and with absorbing runoff and chemicals and sands, sediment, etc. It's not very friendly to look at a big mass of black tar. So whatever we could do along Point Road, along down by the park, is there room along these surfaces to leave a bit of space to add some of that green?
I think especially in the north parking lot improvements, there is green space north of the proposed parking area that is currently and will be grass. That's an area we could do some additional plantings there. The area on the south improvement, I don't think we have space to do anything south of the south improvement, but it is pretty, I think we're fairly close to the lot line setback there, but we would have to look back to our consulting engineer so they could, to have them look at where we could add some features.
Yeah, anything along Main Street, along Point Road, along Highway 95 that helps with that buffering would be appreciated.
Okay.
Well, and especially, I'm very familiar with the south lot. That's when I drive, that's where I park. So the red outlined area you can see is gravel, and that red line on the east side virtually goes to the river. I mean, there's no area for any sort of runoff to be absorbed before it flows into the river.
Is this slanted in some way, so it's going to go toward?
It's pitched a little towards the river there, I would say.
Yeah,
Will it be pitched in the opposite direction to go toward a rain garden in the future?
In the future state, it'll tip towards rain gardens. They're going to be installed along the east, between the parking lot and the river. We will have the two rain gardens that will receive most of the runoff from the paved areas, the newly paved areas.
So Mayor, again, sorry to interrupt.
No, good.
In my engineer's memo, there's comment number 11. And in that comment, I had suggested the applicant slightly depress or grade the area along Point Road to infiltrate, to provide a little bit more infiltration, stormwater infiltration. That is an area that, as I understand it, it is slightly depressed now from the parking lot and from the road. Probably acts a little bit more like a big old wide open ditch, to convey runoff from both Point Road and from the parking lot to the, I guess it'd be northwest where there's some storm sewer. But if the applicant was willing to lower that area about a foot, maybe 18 inches, then we could create a location where water can go and hopefully then infiltrate within 24 to 48 hours would provide some mitigation for some of the pervious surface. I think it would be probably a better functioning, easier to maintain option than like a porous pavement would. And I think there's room for it. I in fact sketched out a design, if you will, that I'd be glad to pass along, and it's I think something that if Anderson be willing to consider would be a relatively inexpensive option for them to construct.
And what is your timing? Were you planning to get this done before winter, or is it a next spring project?
We hope to do it this year still.
And so this is just a suggestion that you had, that you just discussed, point 11.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's
What
been in
did
both
they-
of my memos.
But what did Anderson say to that?
Well, I don't want to say word for word, but I think the initial response was, well, we're not interested in that at this time. I think,
Yeah, that's good.
did I summarize that okay?
So you suggested it and they said, no, thank you.
In effect, yes, but you know, as these things go, there's give and take, and you know, offering suggestions and, if you will, negotiating at some point too. So
I think we're missing a page.
I don't mind leaving it in there and suggesting it again.
Is there, yeah, we are missing a page. Our
No,
notes.
the numbers aren't sequential, Mayor.
No.
They,
Oh, is that on purpose?
oh,
Okay.
They so what I do, and I know this can be confusing, but from my first memo, I like to retain the same numberings.
So
So
when you
I
refer
remove
to
the comments that have been addressed between the first and second,
Gotcha.
and so that's why the numbers jump.
Okay.
I apologize for the confusion there, but
So if they said not at this time, is there going to be a time?
well, that's up to you,
Yeah.
I think. If you want to make a condition of approval,
Is that something that's not as, I mean, it sounds like the pervious asphalt is expensive and maybe not as good at infiltration as this other option could be, point 11? Like,
yeah, so they're probably not, depending on the areas that, you know, if you assume they're gonna infiltrate the same amount of water, you would do it considerably cheaper in an open green space, both short-term and long-term costs than you would in a porous pavement situation. They're just tough to, they perform really well for constructed well. The porous pavements perform really well for the first number of years, and if they receive real good maintenance, it might be a decade or 15 years or so that they perform well. But you can't see really what's happening below the surface, where you can with an open green space. You can see that, and you can see when the water's pooling too long, and for instance, go in and do some sediment removal to restore, you know, function. So they're just a lot easier. If you've got some room for them, the open spaces are a better option.
Well, it's set to be surface turf anyway, so and grading, when you're moving that much equipment, shouldn't be a real hardship. So is it a matter of just losing space, or is it the same space, only grading it differently?
For us, it was just a matter of having an additional area to inspect and maintain, in addition to the two that we're already adding.
Okay. I think that would be a nice option.
So what does our legal counsel think about us putting something like that into like, would we do that to someone else, or are we just doing it to Anderson because we know they're a big corporation? I mean, I just wanna, I don't wanna put a Band-Aid on them that we would have put on somebody else and get in trouble for it.
Well, you'd never
You know.
get to be at 100% impervious coverage at your residence.
Right.
So,
I know, that's true, but I'm just asking,
but
because I don't.
great question. I mean, I'm not
Get in
trying
trouble.
to
I
play devil's
think it's a great
advocate.
idea. I'd rather see them do more, but I don't want to set a precedent here that we aren't gonna do other places. I don't know if we have any other places that are 100% impervious right now either.
Connie, did you want to? Thank you. It's a good point. Oh, go ahead, Andy.
I'm excited. So, Mayor and Council, on that question, and then I also want to answer Councilmember Dahl's question earlier. But on the first question, conditions on variances need to be roughly proportional to, and sort of equivalent to what the variance is requesting. So, for example, if you put on a conditions that has nothing to do with anything that's the project is asking for, or anything, like they have to put a clock tower on one corner of the lot or something, you know, that wouldn't fly. But this one, and I'm certainly defer to John on the engineering points, but he identified that in his memo, and so I think that is definitely appropriate to include as a condition. Doesn't violate any sort of direct link to what the project is doing. This condition doesn't violate that. So the question is, you know, would there be some negotiation that Anderson would do with the city that could come to a good conclusion for what everyone's looking for? Now, so if you add a condition, I would recommend that it gets very specific as to what we're asking for, and what the company knows that they need to comply with, so they can maybe come back with an alternative or just comply with it. And I don't remember, Sarah, I didn't recall the time limit on this. If there's plenty of time, or we get an extension or something. So while she looks at that, Councilmember Dahl's question is a good one about, and we hadn't talked about this before, but since you work for the corporation, and I have no problem concluding from a legal standpoint that there's no conflict for you to engage and vote and do all that. From a legal standpoint, the statutes around conflicts of interest for city council members typically revolve around, are you gaining a personal financial benefit to you or your family by voting on this? Well, this, to me, is just a straight variance application, land use application that I don't think is going to put in, you know, $100 a month in anyone's pocket necessarily. It's not like that. It's just a pure getting the land use approval. That's something the city code doesn't allow for. So you are not gaining a personal financial interest by this vote. Now, so that's legally just sort of how it looks, or how you want to engage on this or not is really up to, you know, if any council member works for any company that comes before the council with a land use application, that council member has to basically make that his or her determination on that. And so it's entirely appropriate for you to recuse for sort of non-legal reasons.
Okay.
That's what I'll say on that.
I appreciate that explanation. Thank you, Andy.
So I have another question. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, no, my comment was just gonna be that instead of requiring that they go onto some type of different surface, I think, John's number 11 be a good compromise, and I'd be okay with requiring something like that versus making them go back and put a whole different surface in, is all I was gonna say.
Okay.
The type of surface.
Thank you, Connie. Michelle.
So if I'm understanding the map, the area that's gravel is right now the area that we have an agreement with them to have boat trailer parking. Is that correct? In the south lot?
Correct.
So will that affect that if it becomes turf?
We don't intend to touch the boat parking area. We're gonna leave that as is.
Oh, okay. It looks like it's part of it from this red marking, but it's hard to tell far away. Okay. So isn't that where the boats park though, on that gravel?
Yes.
Okay,
And
so you're planning to just leave all of that as it is?
And our planned parking will be paved up to the gravel boat trailer parking.
Oh, and so what John is suggesting is that we convert that over to something, or, because I thought it says area north, the north parking lot. Sorry, I was reading about the north parking lot. I thought we were talking about the south.
Well, my point was that the south, the boat trailer parking, and I don't know how many feet, it obviously depends upon how high the river is. It's pretty high right now, but it's, if you've parked there before or been down there,
Yeah, it goes
it's
right to
right
the
on
river.
top of the river,
Yeah.
very close.
So point 11 is only about the north parking lot.
Right.
Doesn't help with that runoff that's coming right off the gravel.
And where exactly are they going to place this is hard because we have 150 very small drawing. So,
Very far away map.
Right. so is there something that shows,
These, I guess.
Where the rain gardens would go?
These.
Yeah.
That's what I was wondering.
Members of the
Harder to
council,
understand because we're not engineers, but we have these maps.
there are more detailed engineering maps of both parking areas. And on the second one, the south parking lot, as you can see, there's a call out for protecting the existing boat trailer parking. So that's the part that'll be left. That's kind of cut out there with the dotted lines. Just on that point, the city is currently in discussions with Anderson regarding assisting with future land and water legacy improvement project. And part of the concept plan that has been discussed if the boat launch is moved to the city property, that boat parking area will go away, and there's proposed improvements, greenery space. So there's an opportunity for future improvements there regarding the stormwater management. So that's just something to keep in mind. They did have additional improvements proposed as part of the concept plan for that area. So that is a future opportunity. Not to say that additional improvements or requirements or conditions can't be imposed by the council on this project, but that boat parking area will be impacted in the future.
But is this the appropriate time to talk about that? Because we're actually talking about impervious surface right now? We're at that point,
I think we need to keep the two separate.
Yeah, I do.
Right.
But just to keep in mind that
I'm just saying when we get
there
to
will
that
be
point.
potential opportunities. That
Why would we be
portion is
talking
being
about
left. I was just explaining why that portion is being left.
Yeah, because
Because there's potential for it to
I was
change in
leaving
the
it as
future.
green space, right?
So, yes, so I just wanted to make note of that.
I
and then point
understand, I
out
guess
this-
what I'm concerned
this
about
map.
is that down the road, if this comes to fruition and the boat launch is moved, is that an appropriate time for us to talk about the fact that they have impervious surface over here to deal with? It feels like now is the time for us.
That would be another part of that would be a separate conversation, just another future opportunity to come back. I imagine that there'll be more projects with Anderson as we have every couple of years. So it's an ongoing conversation. As staff has pointed out, the rate is 20% is where they're supposed to be if they were to build today. Clearly, they're over 100 years old and it's grown, and it kind of is what it is. So we're trying to make the best of it. When staff has the opportunity, and we do this with private residences as well, where if they're getting a CUP or some other improvement to their land, we do have a non-conforming situation. We try to improve that. We had a duplex, if you recall, last fall, that we tried to do some of the same, making these improvements. The current code doesn't, as staff has pointed out, just doesn't really have any additional teeth to have specifics, but it is within the council's purview to, add these conditions where they think appropriate.
so the south parking lot will be structured so that the runoff is going into the two different rain gardens instead of going into the river?
Sort of.
Sort of.
Yeah, sort of. I mean, the runoff from this big paved area is generally west to east, and the rain gardens are north of the boat parking and south of the boat parking. So there will be, a certain amount of the parking lot that'll sheet flow across the boat parking as it does today to the river. But it looks like they're going to do a nice job of capturing. I'm just going to estimate, say, 40 to 50%, maybe even more of that parking area in these rain gardens. And then there'll be a certain kind of swath down the middle there that'll run straight off. And that's just the nature of how it flows today. It would be a parking lot that size, then it'd be more of a grading project to change that.
So just for reference, this is our south parking lot. This feature up in the northeast corner here is one of the rain gardens, and this feature in the southeast corner is the other rain garden. I think John was referencing this northern, maybe 40% will be concentrated flow into this rain garden. And the southern 10 to 20% will flow into this rain garden, while the central, some of the water from the middle of the parking lot will sheet flow over the existing boat trailer parking, which is right here, and then down the bank into the river.
There's nothing we can do to keep it from going down the bank into the river? As maybe John suggested in the beginning?
So why is it being designed where you can't do the shedding of the water to each direction?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was designed to minimize the volume of grading that we have to do. I think if we would have had to, if we were gonna take this central area and discharge it to one of these two features here, then we would have had to either excavate these deeper or bring fill in here to make those grades work.
But is it, I mean, I'm trying to figure out minimal ways to do what we need to accomplish that are not, I mean, digging a hole deeper doesn't seem like it's that challenging to do. I mean, I can see where maybe grading the parking lot in different ways is more challenging and more expense, but digging a rain garden or maybe making it just slightly bigger to accommodate doesn't seem like it's that much of a ask.
Okay.
Just as the other, on the north side, where you're going to have green space anyway, to make that a larger depression, again, it's an inconvenience, and it's, you know, probably added expense, but it seems like those would be really good, environmentally friendly things to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think the biggest bang for environmental buck in this project is to put asphalt over the gravel, personally.
It is, granted,
That'll
that's.
be a 90-ish% reduction in total suspended solids runoff into the river. But, you know, if the city puts additional conditions on us, we would be happy to go back and design those in.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that effort and at least have the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that we're not even trying to do anything with the runoff from the middle of the parking lot that's going to go straight into the river.
Right.
I mean, this
And
is
I'm
the
trying
chance
to make
make
sure
it
that we're
better.
not being too onerous on
Right.
Anderson either. I mean, I can see, you know, totally redesigning your parking lot and having it all angled different ways would be really, really onerous. But perhaps making these impressions large enough to accommodate at least more than what we're anticipating would be really appreciated.
Okay.
Does that reflect ideas from the council, or?
Yes.
I would agree.
John, do you agree that he said that he feels like it's a better alternative for them to just put asphalt where the gravel is now? Did I understand you correctly?
I feel that's
That would be.
that's the biggest
Do you
water
agree
quality
that
improvement.
that would be a good water quality improvement? Because you can then slant it or grade it to go away from the river, or what would be the?
And I think what he's suggesting is the proposal is already paving in the areas paved, there'll be, what did you quote, 80 or 90% reduction in total suspended
That's my
solids.
ballpark number.
I mean, and it's not a bad estimate, given that, you know, brand new asphalt is gonna have very little sediment coming off it. I don't hear him suggesting that we're necessarily gonna pave those boat parking spaces. Is that what you were
Oh, I
hearing?
thought that's what I understood. What did you mean?
We don't intend to pave the boat
No,
parking
I
area.
think he was
So-
saying that the initial steps that they proposed were already a vast improvement.
Gravel, but
Oh,
still.
so he's not offering up any other suggestions to improve the runoff into the river
No.
from the?
Just the fact that the asphalt itself.
He's just going
It's
back
got-
to the fact
It-
that we are even doing this project is better than it was before.
Right, and I will attest to the
Sure.
fact that in that gravel area, it's rutted out. It's
Yeah.
bad in there. And it gets worse every month.
Here, I thought he had a
So-
suggestion.
But I think that we possibly do have an option to have these 2 rain gardens, maybe with a greater depression and potential to capture more runoff, and then an additional depression rain garden on the north side. So, what do you guys
So
think?
you're reiterating the plan as it is as
No,
well? Or
no,
you're
I'm adding,
something else?
I'm
Okay.
adding, making these 2 rain
Enlarging
gardens on
them.
the south side larger to
Larger?
accommodate.
Does it take away parking spots for them by doing that? Or for us, or for boat parkers, or whatever?
Had you looked at that?
No.
I mean, it looks like, I guess I'm not sure how to read these, but are all those little lines parking spots that go up to the rain garden that's on the south end?
The lines that are generally east-west are boat trailer lines.
Mhm.
And then the north-south lines are the parking, employee parking stalls.
But there's an
Right.
opportunity to make it bigger going,
Yeah,
North
that's
and
what,
south.
can you, or do you have to?
We,
I
I think there could be an opportunity to push them further towards the river.
To the east?
And then also the one on the north side, north parking lot, instead of just grass, to maybe make it a slight depression. I don't want it to be aesthetically even less attractive to the people that are having that view as well. So, what are your thoughts? We're probably pushing.
I'm in favor of, keeping options open, keeping the dialogue open. I don't think we're being onerous in these asks.
So, Connie?
Well, I guess my main thing would be that north end, doing something down on that end. And I guess if they've improved that, I'm okay with the way they have this, but I would like to see that north end, something done down on that end.
The north parking lot?
Just
Yeah, down near
that
Point.
depression, making that green space into a more of a depression, as outlined by John in item
Yeah.
11.
I guess I feel more urgency with this runoff that's going directly into the river.
So that's why I'm
That's why-
proposing all 3.
Yeah, I would say, yeah.
So you're not asking for a big lot of change, just make it a little bigger, right?
Just make
Yeah.
it bigger and make it accommodate more runoff and sediment. So that would be my ask. I don't know how that's factored or delineated, or the language that's necessary for that. I would need,
Is there an opportunity, John, maybe you would be able to kind of swale that off to the east and direct that water north and south, or is that just asking too much of a swale?
Well, yeah, that's a very good question, and to be frank, as I'm looking at the contours here, I think it is a big ask to try and do something on the east side of those boat parking spaces, because of the fact that the contours tell me that drops off a decent pitch there on the backside, and so it's going to be a little tougher to construct something there than it would in the areas proposed. Having said that, engineers, we can make things happen. It's just it's a bigger footprint and a little bit more impact. Frankly, I don't know what the timetable is, or even if there's a guarantee that a different boat parking area would eventually come online, but it would seem to me like the low-hanging fruit there would be as if that were to happen, that maybe half of this existing boat parking area be allowed to turn into parking for their employees and guests, and the other half, the easterly half, be joined into this rain garden complex, if you will.
Eventually.
And I don't know if that's overreaching with conditions at this stage of the game. I don't know the certainty of relocation of the boat parking or any of that
I
sort
think
of
we
thing.
have to take it one step at a time.
Yeah, see, I don't,
But that seems like, just from a design, if I just strictly put my designer's hat on for a minute, that's where it would fit best, is on the back half of those boat trailer parking spaces. in the
What about
future.
expanding the 2 rain gardens that are already there, which is what the mayor suggested? Do you see
So expanding.
that helping?
Yeah, so there might be room to expand them a little bit, but to expand them to try and capture this middle area we're talking about is a tougher ask because of the drop, the way the grades drop off behind the boat trailer parking.
So we could do it, but it's probably not gonna capture.
It'll capture something, yeah, it'll capture, it won't tie into those others, it'll probably be lower than the other two rain gardens, which isn't an all bad thing, but you'll be grading on a slope that, you know, I can't tell from this right now because we didn't plot full-size things, but, you know, might be approaching, you know, bluff grades, like 12% or steeper. So usually we try and protect those steep slopes as best we can.
So I'm still not
I
understanding
think
if
it's
it's worth our while to ask them to make the rain gardens larger. It sounds like it's only gonna capture maybe more runoff from the places it's already capturing runoff and not necessarily
Yeah,
gonna
so
help.
can I use, maybe it'll help me if I could point and talk to
Yes,
his
it
drawing,
would
is
help
that okay?
everybody, I'm sure.
Todd, do you mind if I draw on it?
Feel free. Actually, it's Matt's.
Matt, do you mind if I draw on it? I just wanna, I think sometimes this just helps to be looking at the same thing here. So the infiltration practices we're talking about are, I'm gonna highlight in green. See, did I go too far? Yeah, I went too far, didn't I? Right here, right
The
here.
north, it's actually this line right there.
Yeah, well, this points to some of it too. It's just an upper part of it. So these are the two infiltration practices. And then from what I can do on the fly here, I think, oops, this much of the parking area is going to flow to this one, and probably this much of the parking area here is going to flow to this one. So then we have this middle area here, and I think what I'm hearing, if I'm interpreting everything correctly, is that we're talking about possibly trying to improve something in this area here.
That
Have I
that
got
would
that
be-
right?
John and I suggested
That would be ideal.
Okay, so this is the area that's already starting to go down the slope, and so I don't think we'll get this to tie into these necessarily. It can provide its own treatment, but there's going to be some tree removals down on this end. I think there's going to be some trade-offs, and I don't know if we're going to get a big bang for our buck here because it's going to be kind of a long, narrow, skinny thing for this area. It'd certainly be better than nothing. So
We don't want to remove trees, so
Yeah,
let's
so there's a
not
few
do
trees
that.
down here.
Yeah.
But are there like better grasses or anything that can keep this runoff from going in? Is there any kind of
Yeah, I'm
plantings?
not really familiar with the grass that's growing there now, so I don't know.
It's like turf.
It's
grass.
turf grass.
It's just turf grass.
So you could, I mean, there are things you can do to, you know, reduce mowing frequency and maybe plant a type of turf that is more native-ish. You know, I hate to say natives because it adds a whole nother level and the establishment is really tricky with natives, but, you know, there's those sorts of things that could be considered, I suppose, as
And I mean, you don't want to disturb it, leave it as dirt and have it all in a big rainstorm run right into the river, which
Right.
is even worse. But, you know, I would like to see Anderson Corporation take the initiative to look at ways that they could do anything with the WMO to improve that and reduce the runoff, as well as on that north side, I'd like to see the Anderson explore that, making that depression at least somewhat so that we can capture some of that runoff as well.
The north lot.
And the north lot.
We could consider, like, without doing extensive grading in this area, we could consider removing the turf grass and planting it with some sort of a buffer strip. And I'm not familiar, and I don't want to spout off like what the technical MPCA erosion control buffer strips are called, but it's more of a robust planting. John's kind of referring to.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be really appreciated.
Yeah.
Todd, are you guys, and I'm gonna maybe sound foolish here, do you guys deal with the Middle St. Croix Watershed Management Organization at all?
Yes.
And Matt Downing, okay, so.
We've mostly worked with Mike Isfancy.
Okay, Mike moved on now, and so Matt Downing is our interim. I'm the council representative. So yeah, I'm just they're an outstanding resource for any of that kind of stuff, and I know would be helpful in many different ways from the technical aspect of any of the plant species and things that could be done there. So I guess I would ask that we reach out to them.
We actually, in 2015, Anderson partnered with the Middle St. Croix Watershed Organization and a consulting firm, Wank Engineering, and wrote a stormwater master plan for our site. This is actually one of the projects that was identified, was to pave this area and install some rain garden features.
Okay, well, that would be my ask. Any other additional things that the council would like? So, Sarah?
Madam Mayor and members of the council, I should answer City Attorney Pratt's question about the timeline here. So a complete application was submitted on August 22nd, and we have 60 days in order to review and make a recommendation or approve or deny the application. So we're bumping up against that time frame here. I think by adding John's condition number 11, and then with the message to add a buffer strip there along the boat trailer parking, I think those are things that possibly, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, but we can work through those at a staff level, just adding those conditions, and the council would be recommending approval contingent upon those items, and then we could handle the review administratively rather than extending the application another 60 days. And John and Andy, if you want to speak to those or correct me if I'm wrong, but I know they were interested in trying to get this project moving yet this year, and the sooner we can make these improvements, I think the better, especially with spring coming and all that runoff. I think by transitioning from the gravel to the asphalt will be an improvement. But if we could work through a couple of these things administratively, John and Andy, would you like to respond to that or comment?
I agree.
Okay,
All right.
I think that'd be great. All right, any other questions or comments? John, does that satisfy? Is that a compromise? Okay. All right, would someone like to make a motion?
Let's see. I'll make a motion to approve the variance from impervious covered requirements for parking lot and stormwater improvement project at, I'm reading everything, 100 4th Avenue North, with the condition as outlined in the engineer's memo, point number 11, for the north parking lot, and also a condition that our city administration will work with Anderson to upgrade the buffer, should we call it, between the existing gravel parking spaces and the river for the south lot. And also, do we have to add conditions of approval as stated in section C of the staff report? Yeah, is that good? Anything I'm missing? I think that's my motion.
Very good,
All
thank
right.
you. Thanks, Michelle. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Connie. With this, do we need a roll call?
Yes,
We
ma'am.
do. Okay.
Councilmember Hanson.
Aye.
Councilmember Carlson.
Aye.
Councilmember Dahl.
I'm gonna abstain.
Mayor St. Orders.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone, for working through that, and thanks,
Thank you,
please
Todd.
extend our thanks to Anderson Corporation for being accommodating. Okay, great. All right.
Thanks for bringing that up, John, by the way.
Yeah, that was excellent. Okay, so now we have our second item of new business to discuss residential solid waste recycling and yard waste collection proposals, and we're going to turn that over to Adam.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just also want to point to the council, Franklin Romack from Republic Services, our current trash hauler, is here this evening.
Welcome.
Romack, was there anything that you wanted to speak to the council? I know you had mentioned speaking at the open forum, but please.
Hello.
Romac Franklin with Republic Services. Madam Mayor, members of council, thank you so much for having me, giving me a moment. Republic Services, we have enjoyed working with the city for over 15 years. We just, again, would like to share that we've been working very diligently to respond to your questions with regards to customer complaints. We've been doing much better. We don't have a lot of complaints, but the complaints that we have had over the last 3 months has been one, and that was in regards to a customer who said that we missed his house. So we did go back out as soon as it was brought to our attention, and we did get that serviced and taken care of. So I just wanted to keep you abreast of what was going on and let you know we do enjoy the partnership, and we'd like to continue to work with the council and work with the city. But thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your willingness and making those efforts. So Adam.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Members of the council, attached in your packet was a memo kind of summarizing where we're at, and I'll provide that again for the public. And council also received a cost comparison, kind of a summary comparison of the proposals that were received of the most recent waste hauler request for proposals. Since 2005, the trash in the city has been provided by Republic Services, but due to various dissatisfaction with some of the performance over the years, over the last couple of years, the city council advised directed staff to issue an RFP to request for proposals to look at what other options are out there. The city did that in July, and in August, the city received back 3 proposals, one from the current hauler, Republic, and 2 others, and staff has been going through those. And initially, we were intending to have more progress made on the review and present something to the council to decide at tonight's meeting. But Councilmember Buckley, who was part of one of the driving forces for issuing the RFP, I wanted to have the opportunity. He wanted to be part of the conversation. So I have had conversations with him individually, but he's unfortunately not able to. He's out of town for this meeting. So that ultimate decision has to be postponed. The information that you have before you, I also gave the council a copy of the most recent 2018 amendment to the current contract and the previous existing contract with Republic Services or Allied Waste. In the summary comparisons that you have before you, you can see that all 3 prices, just for the general waste and recycling, are a little bit higher than the current contract until you add the taxes. And so when you try to get to the apples to apples, you can see that there is one option that will actually be a price decrease. And you can see the comparisons of the annual projected increase. The other 2 haulers had 4, and the low bid, or low proposal, not low bid, but low proposal was a 3% annual increase. As the council is aware, the recycling costs are increasing with the end market for those recycling materials. That market has kind of dried up at this point. So that's a increasing or fluctuating factor. One of the areas that the proposals came back regarding the yard waste, the low proposal does actually have the highest yard waste cost for subscribers, but the current contract, the proposal from our current hauler, is substantially higher than the other 2. So that kind of sticks out for that factor, that aspect.
So that is accurate. That annual yard waste from Republic is going up from $79.80 to $123.24.
That was the proposal. Yeah. So under the current, so the information you have in front of you, the current contract affords a 95-gallon at $79.80 a year, and it's $3 per bag over your allotted 5 bags. The proposal did include a 95-gallon cart and 5 bags, but the price and the extra bags did stay the same. And the extra bags are also if if you don't subscribe. So if it's just a one-off, you have to have them come pick up X number of bags. That price stayed the same, but the annual subscription did increase substantially.
Yeah.
And out of the three, all three are fairly, I don't know, I don't want to term it significant, but it's a substantial amount of money higher than the current yard waste rate.
I forgot to ask you, Adam, we didn't have a chance to talk today, but I know that Republic does not, what would the word be, like prorate? So if you sign up in the middle of the year, you're
It's an
still paying
annual-
that full rate? Is that the case with the other
That's the case
two?
with all of
Okay.
the providers' proposals. Some of the other aspects, all three were fairly close in the cleanup day offerings, which was something the city was requesting. One of the substantial differences is the low proposal, and I'll say it's Highland Sanitation. They did offer weekly recycling with their lower cost. Both the other proposals did include both alternative proposals, weekly and bi-weekly recycling. One of the things that the city has received in the past was comments from residents is that there is an interest in the increased recycling. I know we've had discussions with Republic previously about adding that, and there would be an additional cost. So that was an option that we could have looked at, but under our current contract, it would have incurred additional cost.
Excuse me,
Yes.
are you talking about organic?
No, so the organics, that's one other factor that the city had requested information on in the proposals. For Republic, they only do commercial. It hasn't, and that's an evolving area for waste hauling. They don't currently offer residential for a city our size. The waste management does not either, and nor does Highland. And I'm sorry, I should have said that. The three proposals that the city did receive back was, one was Republic, our current hauler, one was Waste Management, and one was Highland Sanitation. Highland Sanitation was the lowest overall proposal with fairly, some additional features. Both Waste Management and Highland do offer organic disposal, but it would be at a city facility. So they were willing to offer a dumpster where residents, and we'd have to figure out how to manage that, where it would be located, who gets to do it, when, So there's a lot more to it that we would still need to figure out. And they acknowledge that. It's not just they just throw a dumpster and it's a free-for-all. They said you need to figure out the details of that. Mm-hmm. But both Waste Management and Highland did offer that option where we can provide a location for them to put a dumpster and either have it removed weekly or twice a week, where residents can come and dispose of their organics.
It would be part of the whole city.
There would be an
Waste
additional
management?
cost. I believe it was $75, $100, and $125. I mean, the cost was relatively low. That's a monthly cost to
The entire
The
city.
city would pay, yeah.
the city would pay.
Right.
So
Okay.
that would be the cost that the city would be charged.
How to break
Yeah.
that out.
Yeah, that wouldn't be passed on to the residents. That would be the city. The city would basically rent an additional dumpster. Now, one thing just for everybody's, the city doesn't necessarily directly benefit more from one versus the other haulers. The city, as part of our contracts, which is, it's common for most, if not all cities, we receive, included in the contract is disposal at no cost. So we get weekly at all of our facilities that we designate. So currently Republic issues us dumpsters and containers, just like the residents, and that's included in the contract. But it's the same. There's not, a container's a container for City Hall. So that doesn't really make much of a difference.
Can we go back to cleanup day for a second?
Yes.
What does resident user expense mean? Like, how much would it cost, or do we
It depends on
what they're bringing, like if it's
because we don't
TV?
have current figures to base it off of. It's been several years since the city has operated a cleanup day. It's something that just in the last year or two, there's been increasing demand for that to come back. So the staff has been discussing that. So that was something we would want to. Our current contract does offer that. There's no detail in that. It said it would be mutually agreed upon as far as the how that's implemented.
Because Republic and Waste Management both have some hourly rate. But
Yep, so there's hourly rates for staff, the hauler staff, and the various dumpsters cost a different amount. Some of it's hourly, some of it's per load. Some of it, what they ultimately want to get to is where they have several years of data so they can base it off of. All the trash is how much trash is disposed of. They're charged how much they tip at the waste disposal. So the more that there is to dump, the more it's going to cost them. So that has to get passed on. But it also has to be worth their time. If they can't assign staff and trucks and dumpsters out here and nobody shows up, nobody's benefiting from that.
But
so that would cost the city. The city has been paying. The last time we did it, the city, I want to say, spent. I want to say, $5,000, $10,000 to have the event, and not that many people showed up. So that's for the reason I was told that.
You had to pay to drop things out there.
So that's on top of some of the proposals.
That was like
with
for
additional
electronics.
costs
Yeah, for
that
certain
the
things,
person,
yeah.
$20 like a car load or whatever the case may be.
But this, would Highland offer, like, you call up or you go online and
says
schedule that they'll come to your home and get rid of
Reduce-
your old microwave?
Yes, so
or
they
something?
all three
So-
have
Curbside
very
pickup.
similar
Okay.
rates in the bulk items.
Okay.
And all three have offered where you could also have a citywide, curbside event. In addition to a cleanup day in the spring, maybe a fall cleanup curb event.
I like that idea,
Yeah.
because then folks are paying their own
The
bills.
well,
But it's
that,
a
yeah, that would
convenience,
be,
they get to put it at the end of their driveway, it gets removed, but it's not like next door neighbor is in it paying for the other person's garbage to go away.
right. And so
So-
some of that, all of them offer that currently.
Right.
If you call, you can schedule a bulk item pickup. So.
But if we had the specific day where they can come in and know that 100 resident, 100 individual properties are gonna have that, is that, to me, that would be more desirable for them. And
why
so
not?
maybe that gets,
It becomes an
passed along.
efficiency matter where
Right.
they're not coming out just one couch.
Right.
I mean, I'm somewhat speaking.
It sounds like that's something we can work out with any one of these haulers, but we're not sure of the exact. Cost to the
The
city to
cleanup
do that.
days, and I did provide electronically the proposals themselves. It's complex.
Yeah.
Those details, some of it gets into, like I said, the different types of line items. But they're all fairly close. So one of the things that because we don't have an actual proposal to vote on this evening, I'm not looking for the council to vote necessarily, and Councilmember Buckley is not here. I am looking, I'm happy to answer more questions, but just to let the council know, one of the things I am looking for tonight is kind of some direction, if there's a consensus as to who to pursue a contract with. A couple things I also do want to note. The city, we do have 1 year effectively till the end of 2020 under our current contract, as the council knows. There's a clause in our contract that does allow the city to terminate for unsatisfactory performance, which is something that the council has indicated that it's the position of if the city were to exercise that clause and terminate the current contract early. We have been informed by Republic that it would be contested. I would expect that they don't want the contract to end, so that's not unexpected. But there would be some potential legal fees to have to deal with that. That I don't have an estimate for that, but just want the council to know that it's not going to be a simple or just clean. We've been put on notice that they're not going to just give up. So the other thing, the RFP did request service to be the new service, if the council decides to do that, to start January 1st of 2020. So this next coming January. There is a transition period that we would need in order to set up all the new accounting, all the new accounts, get the new containers out to all the residences, all the properties. So we want to make sure we have enough room to have a contract and have that transition period in place. Staff is proposing to bring back, I'd like to have the council vote on the options are either to maintain the current contract, and we would need to do another RFP next year, or terminate the current contract and go with a new hauler, or one other option would be to renegotiate our current contract. Staff has not been satisfied. I don't want to say satisfied. The current contract we have, it was written by Republic years ago. It's not the greatest contract, just generally speaking. We would want a new contract at a minimum, because that's, going forward, just because there's a lot that it's a lot left to be desired. So what staff would like to know is if there's any of the proposals that you have before you, if there's one or two that you'd like to direct the city staff to pursue negotiating a contract to consider at the November meeting when Councilmember Buckley is back. And there would be further discussion at that point as well regarding specific. And we can have any of the haulers come in at that time.
Okay. Andy, do we have any estimate of what we might be looking at legal fees if we were to exercise our clause?
I'm going to borrow a line from John earlier tonight and say that
depends.
But,
Will cost you.
however, whenever the city is involved in a claim where it is on the receiving end of that claim, then that is in most cases covered by liability insurance. So I don't know the details of your premium and that sort of thing, but typically then that is assigned to an insurance defense attorney and covered by your policy. So it's not as...
Would be to the League of Minnesota Cities.
Yeah, the League of Minnesota.
Okay.
So that's that. I did also make a note. I wanted to remind the council that the actual RFP submissions are still considered to be private data under the Data Practices Act. Doesn't mean you can't discuss, but the actual submissions are private until the completion of the evaluation process, and that completion is defined as when you sign a contract with one of the three proposers. The names of the proposers are public as soon as the RFP deadline hits, so that's already known. So just to kind of keep it secure.
I like some of the things that were being offered by Highland. I like weekly recycling. I think that we've been asking for something like that for quite some time. So that's really, and you've done some reference checks on on all of them, and that seems to be that you've traced several cities that are customers.
I've done reference checks on all
of them.
Proposals.
Great.
So.
And all the references checked out, of course.
Yes, and these are references that they listed. So,
I mean, there are obviously circumstances that have led us to this point.
yeah, one of the just for the public's information, one of the things that make one of the proposals stand out is the local office as far as the customer service. One of the sources of some of the complaints we received, both as staff and City Hall and some of the council members' comments over the past year and a half, has been the frustration with the regional call center that has been that change over the last couple of years from a more local. Romac, Mr. Franklin, who's here with us tonight, has been very responsive, and he has taken over. When there's a complaint, we've been able to forward them to him. But some of the frustration that has occurred, we have one new community, Inspiration, and they've had issues even just signing up for service because they're new, but there hasn't been familiarity with the call service center. That's something that both Waste Management and Republic currently have. There would be a varying level of service as far as local versus regional. But I do want to give Mr. Franklin credit for being responsive in most cases to anything that we do send him.
But that's when it's already been an escalation.
Well, yes, I want to be fair.
Right.
I have a clarification on the numbers. The current numbers, if I'm seeing it correctly in Exhibit A in the packet, they do not include state or county taxes for our current provider. Do the others?
No. So all the
everything's
taxes have been removed.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
From the figures that you received. The current, and the reason for that is the current rates that I have did not have the taxes. I could figure it out.
But it was
Keep it
easier
simple.
apples to apples. Okay.
So the taxes are going to be the
I
same.
was gonna say, everyone's gonna
dollar
charge you the same for
percentage.
taxes, so, okay, I just wanted to make sure that that was the case. And I guess, I've heard some of the complaints, and I've been there helping with one of the major complaints that recently happened, and Romac and I were emailing quite a bit. And I wasn't impressed with how it was handled. Personally, I think there were no apologies, there was not a lot of good explanation about why the instance happened, the customer was being charged, and it was very confusing. He brought an extra can when he didn't ask for it, and maybe miscommunication from both sides there, but I was disappointed that it took a council member for some action to actually happen, because he was trying to deal with it on his own and it didn't get anywhere. So I guess I'm not married to keeping the Republic Services contract going unless we think legally it's not a good time to do that or whatever, but
I have found when, a lack of ease of use in the customer service of, I've received differing quotes from different calls. I've been on hold for multiple, very long time frames, and some things would end up coming back still incorrect. So I'm glad that we are exploring different options, because we should be able to expect a really high level of service from whichever vendors we're using. Mm-hmm. I'm not keen on engaging in legal activities. If that can be avoided at any time, I prefer to avoid legal encounters. I also was not very pleased at the last time that we were trying to explore different options, and we ended up being kind of tied in by our current vendor. And now it looks like we're being, instead of improving the satisfaction, we're being tied in again, which is a bit frustrating and disappointing. So, it'd be easiest to just wait it out until to January 2021. Is that when this other contract would end?
That is when the current contract, yes. The contract historically, at least for the past several iterations, was an October 1st through September 30th. And I don't know how that date is selected, but that's where we've been. So we just entered another term then at the end of so October 1st of 2020, there will be a 3-month extension to bring it to the end of the year. That was something that during the last negotiation with the Republic for the extension, was identified as we'd rather have a clean January through December term. But our current contract obligations do run until through December 31st of 2020.
Oh, because the extension was already added to that contract.
Yeah, the current, yes.
Gotcha.
I have some things to
Go ahead,
say.
John.
As per usual, I guess I have a lot to say, pretty strong opinions. First of all, I represent a family that's been happy with Republic. If don't call me, I'll call you kind of deal. We haven't had any problems. So I definitely want to offer that up in fairness to Republic. That being said, kind of up on my soapbox a little bit, recently my family started recycling our organic waste. We realized, mainly my wife in this deal, but how much trash we were putting into the landfill on a weekly basis. And I think if you look online, you'll see up to 30% of stuff that gets thrown in a dumpster that ends up in a landfill is organic material that could be put elsewhere. 30% is a large number, and an organic option is huge for us, huge for me. Right now, my wife collects it, and we have to drive it to the recycling center in Woodbury and drop it off there, and we've chosen to do that. We have to put it in the freezer, deep freeze, so it doesn't get gross and stuff like that. But I would encourage people to look at that option, and I know there's other families in Bayport that wish they had an organic recycling option, so that's big for me.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's going to be one of those things that don't put it next to my yard. And it's going to be a dumpster, and it's going to be it's going to have an odor that would need to be accommodated. And so, I just think that that's something we have to keep in the back of our mind. We don't have a lot of open space in Bayport to put it, so I'm not sure where that would be. I'm not sure anyone would want it right next to their own home.
Do they ever do it where it's actually just like a compost site that you bring your organics to, and everything can be composted, or is it not work that way? Instead of like it all gets thrown in a dumpster, it's actually, someone has to go turn it or whatever.
In St. Louis Park, they actually have it picked up at their homes, and so then it's not this city receptacle. Because I totally agree with you, John. I would love to be able to recycle it just like all my other items, but without us having an open space where it wouldn't attract.
Frankly, like for us, what we would probably do is, rather than drive it to the recycling center every 2 weeks or whatever, my wife again does it all, but have it in the freezer, and on collection day, out there, instead of us having to go all the way down there. So you're throwing some blocks of frozen stuff in some sort of receptacle that gets picked up.
The first time I ever met Romac, I actually brought that up with him, and it never came to the city. He was going to talk to us about it, but it sounds like they don't offer it, so there wasn't anything to talk about.
It's an evolving area.
It's
becoming, obviously, the demand has been growing. I know larger cities have a lot more, more feasible. It's something that countywide they're looking at encouraging because it eliminates that from the stream. But it's, as I said, an evolving, and those details of if the city were to, with either of the other two proposals, those details would need to be, all the considerations would need to be taken into account, and those details need to be worked out.
So then, just a couple other things. I'm in agreement with the mayor in terms of getting into, regardless of what it costs us, I'm not super interested in getting into kind of a legal back and forth. I would hope that everybody acts in each other's best interest and good faith, and it wouldn't need to get to that kind of a scenario. But if it gets there, I'm certainly in favor of pursuing something from a legal standpoint. And then the only other thing that hasn't been talked about, pickup days and times, and I know they're always gone, in the morning, but like for one of the times is 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I have no interest in somebody driving around with a garbage truck after dusk, and just kids and stuff like that. Same with another one, doesn't have a time, but then even 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. That's something, and maybe that's par for the course, but having garbage trucks wheeling around
Right.
at dusk.
Or
seems
having
silly
the
to me.
opportunity for them to blow around later in the day, but Adam?
Our current ordinance dictates the 7 to 7 as the hours, so that's something that hasn't been really discussed at the council level, at least since during my tenure. But one of the proposals, the Highland did request the change both in the day, based on their current pickup schedule, but also shifting it from that 7 to 7, 6 to 6. Some of the logic behind that, or the rationale that they proposed, was get the trucks off both in the morning, off the streets earlier, to deal with morning traffic in
Buses,
schools.
yeah.
And then also they project having it done before noon, and before it gets hot and trash is not in the street, but also for their own drivers' benefit. They admitted that it would be better to have it done earlier. They think they can get it done. That hasn't been requested by anyone else during, currently, or but that was part of their proposal, was, as you can see, the change in the day and the hours. We have, we get the occasional comments from the public sometimes about accusing, I think I heard a dump truck or a garbage truck in the alley at 6:30, and it's hard to verify because we don't hear about it till hours later, maybe the next day later, and we may have heard 2 in the last year. So I don't know how that would go over with the public. I think there is a strong rationale to make that change. At least consider it. It would have to be a council, broader discussion. But that's the information I have.
Yeah, I didn't get to the school time issue, but that was my other one, is not have school children either on the front side of the day or the afternoon side of the day mingling with garbage trucks.
So mine is picked up, the recycling's right at 7 a.m., but it doesn't,
I leave for work so early that I don't have the foggiest idea when they come, so.
I think as far as not having the trash blow around is, the earlier in the day, the better. But what do we need to, we just need to make, did you have anything else?
No, those were my points. I don't have a strong feel any way other than organic recycling is huge for me. That's that will weigh into my decision.
All right. So, Connie?
Well, like John, I guess we've never had an issue with our collection, whether it be recycling or garbage. And I also agree with you. I would rather not get into a legal issue if it can be resolved. But I guess I'd like to see what John Buckley has to say and just look over this a little bit more. And I think organic is good, but I wouldn't want it in my backyard.
Yeah.
So maybe you could volunteer that circle you got up there.
I would actually.
Those that, there have been people with lots that are big enough to accommodate their composting processes, but not everybody does that or practices that. So it's, but if we could arrange it eventually to have it picked up from our homes, I think that would be ideal. I don't think a central dumpster is going to be a good solution for Bayport. But any direction, or we need to provide Adam with some guidance?
I guess I'm leaning towards Highland, but one thing I can't figure out is if it's better off for us to wait out this contract, even though I would say personally I wasn't having a lot of issues with Republic, but then within the last year I did have, I had my own personal, yes.
Okay.
Like, they never came to pick up, well, first of all, apparently everyone does that, but when we ordered our yard waste, they never told us that it was, we just ordered it like 2 months before the end of the year, not knowing that it was to the, so it was a stupid
Ending
time to order
soon,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, no one said, okay, So anyways, we said, come and pick it up. We don't want it. We're not gonna pay for it and it took them like 3 weeks to come and pick it up when they kept saying, yeah, we'll get it the next time we come. And so my husband had to keep hauling it out there, and then we would leave it and no one would pick it up. And so finally I had to email Nomac, and then it was gone. But
Yeah, it
it's
just would be nice if it didn't get to
little-
an escalation
Yeah, it's just little
process.
things, and then that huge issue with the other family that I was helping with, it's just unfortunate that it wasn't the kind of service that
Yeah,
I would
I think
expect.
what I'm hearing, members of the council, if there was a really strong sentiment right now to provide direction to go negotiate with one of the specific proposals, or if, I think I'm definitely hearing a consensus that it may make sense to complete the contract and reevaluate next year. We would be back in this, if that's the case, we would be, we have all the work done. The next year, we can start, restart the RFP process. And I have had some conversations with Councilor Buckley outside of this, and he's open to that option when I presented the various options. And I won't speak for him, but he did say he's open to that. One of the items that is more of an internal matter or administrative matter, but we currently, as if you recall, every year annually we certify to the county for assessments all the delinquent accounts. That's something that we've never really discussed at the council level. We do not shut off trash service. That would be an option. I think most people would be of the opinion that we don't want trash not getting picked up.
No.
So that's not really an option. The alternative to that is and it's in state statute, to certify those delinquent costs, the delinquent accounts to the county for assessment on the tax rolls. That process, since I've been here, has been getting worked out, where the city, when I started, was doing a lot more work for Republic, and the city's position is we're not the bill collectors. We shouldn't have to do, it was onerous for staff. They had to do a lot more work of trying to collect these delinquent bills instead of just verifying and certifying. So we are working that process out, and I know that was one of Councilor Buckley's complaints, was that process. So he was happy to hear that that's been progress been done there. But I think I have the information that I have. Like I said, unless there's a clear.
I think you're hearing it appropriately.
Okay.
I would say that, unless things dramatically improve, like the online forms and the accuracy of the ordering of online versus having to call in and sit on hold, and the prompt attention without escalations, this won't be a conversation that we have in a year with Republic. It will be severed, and we will be able to go on our way. We've had this conversation too many times. So I would say that that's guidance to Republic, that if we continue on for another year, that to be in the running, things better improve. All right?
Thank you.
And I wish, I heard Highland might be buying more garbage trucks, you told me, but you said they're probably gonna be diesel. Because it would be nice if they have the natural gas ones, but, Allied Waste ones, but.
Agreed there.
But it sounds like that's not Waste Management, they're called now, right? Allied Waste is Weaver Public. Sorry.
Okay. All right. So we don't have any action, a lot of discussion. Thank you, council. Thank you, staff. Our other item of new business is also a discussion topic for this evening. It's consideration of short-term rental ordinance amendment. Currently, there's been several different conversations on this topic. There's been several, there was a proposal that came before the council as far as an ordinance, and it's been tabled. So there's resurgence of interest to discuss this topic and come up with a possible proposal that will be satisfactory to all parties. So I'll turn it over to you to just
Yes,
bring
thank
us
you,
up to
Madam
date.
Mayor. Just to give the public, again, a rundown quickly of kind of where we're at with short-term rental. In November of 2017, the City Council held a workshop on short-term rental. It was a kind of a burgeoning area topic that many communities, both nationwide and in the area, were starting to deal with. The fact that the Super Bowl was in the Twin Cities, that demand for that short-term rental really kind of spurred the greater region. Staff thought it was appropriate to at least start looking at it. So we had no public comments were received at that workshop, which is normally the process. That's not abnormal for that. But then in January, we did receive direction, and in January 2018, City Council voted 4-1 to prohibit short-term rentals at the time and continue researching the issue. There were 2 public comments heard in support of it at that. It wasn't a formal public hearing, but there was public comment allowed. In November of 2018, so just about a year later, staff had been working on this, and there was another workshop held where the council provided additional input. Staff finally, I think we started working closer and closer on coming up with a proposal. In March 18th of 2019, that's this year, staff did bring back a proposal to the Planning Commission, an ordinance amendment. The notice was published in the Stillwater Gazette per usual, and the city website. That was also sent out via the email notice about the ordinance. But we only received 1 public comment in support at the public hearing, the formal public hearing. Then the City Council, that next month, that next meeting, April 1st, took more public comment. They considered the same proposal. Again, I'll just take a step back. At the time, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of that proposal. At the council meeting, there were 3 comments in support, and the City Council couldn't come to an agreement at the time, and so that the item was tabled, as the mayor indicated. So it's formally, it's still tabled. Since that time, staff has met with individual council members to get some more additional feedback. There's a consensus that the proposal that was before the council was too restrictive. That was not a unanimous opinion, but that was the consensus at the time. And since then, I've been discussing with the council just to try to get closer to some format that we can get to. But during this process, there's also been a difference of opinion, or difference as how the process necessarily the best way to proceed forward. So now, October 2019, we're just about 2 years from the original consideration, or the original discussion. So I'd like, because there's some different opinions, both in policy and the process, I'd like the council to provide some additional direction as to how to proceed. I do think, based on recent conversations, that we're closer than we've ever been to finding a workable ordinance that addresses all the concerns and still is not too onerous for anybody. That includes staff, neighbors, and the individuals that want to conduct this activity. So I have 3 specific questions that I'd like the council to answer tonight. And I don't know if they necessarily need to be formal votes, but I do think that would be the cleanest. The first one is whether or not we need to have this, if the council wants to have this item go back through the Planning Commission. City Attorney Pratt advised that it's not legally required, as it has already gone through the Planning Commission and had the formal hearing for a zoning amendment. So it's not required that it goes back through the Planning Commission, but there's been discussion. Originally, I was under the impression that it may have to because it was going to be changing, but I've been advised that it is not required. So that is one of the first. That is the first question that I'd like the council to, at least, if the norm would be for a zoning ordinance, if it's not specifically sent back to the Planning Commission for reconsideration, and in this case it was tabled, it normally wouldn't go. But that's the council, that's the question, one.
Can you go through all three questions?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yeah, maybe some of them you might be able to answer together, so forgive me. So as part of the going forward, the next question is what level or what additional notice or public engagement is desired by the council? I kind of gave the history of where we've gone with this, the whole kind of procedural history of this item. The city's current practice is to not do, if you're familiar, not to do any additional notice or engagement beyond the legal requirements. This for ordinance amendments. We have not done this in the past, other than for issues like the flood, where it obviously is of an emergency regard, or staff has not been able to find any other examples like this. Now, communication is, I don't think you can ever over-communicate. I think there's obviously, for transparency purposes and the benefit of public engagement is, it's never a bad thing. As I indicated, staff has received almost no feedback. I don't want to say almost none, but the same handful, 5 or 6 individuals who are in support of it, and I think we've only heard from 1 or 2 people that are potentially opposed. We haven't even received a formal, they haven't come to a city council meeting or workshop or planning commission. It was a phone call. So that's something that either the public doesn't have a strong feeling about the issue, or they don't know about it. Those are kind of the 2 alternative scenarios. I'm not opposed to ever getting more feedback, but I'd like to, I need data. I can't, people don't know what they don't know. So that's kind of the conundrum that we're in. I do also acknowledge, though, that it's important to be consistent with practices, and we don't want to vary our practices too often, but we also must be open and flexible for changes. Whatever decision is made does set precedents for future issues, so we just have to keep that in mind. But that's the second, is what, on top of, if we were going to move forward with it, it would be coming back to the council. Normally, this would be the normal practice. It would be coming back to the council would take it off the table to reconsider whatever staff proposes, the new revised version. And the normal agenda notice would be part of that would be the normal process. The third one is, based on those other questions, what would be the desired timeline to consider the revised proposal? Some facts for that. The next city council meeting is November 4th. That would be obviously the soonest for a regular city council meeting to consider any revised proposal. If it was decided that the council wants to send it back to the planning commission, they would take it from the table, vote to send it back to the planning commission, and there we would have to have a public hearing, and that requires minimum 10-day publication. And the planning commission, we haven't verified their schedules. There currently is not an October planning commission meeting currently scheduled. There's no business currently on the agenda, but either October 21st or October 28th would be the soonest that they would be able to consider it. If that were the case, the November city council meeting could still be done. Staff is not in any hurry, but this is an issue that has been out there for, as I said, 2 years now. I'd like it resolved one way or another, just to get it off staff's plate and be able to start moving forward with this. I know that there has been several inquiries. Staff has received questions and calls from the public as to what the status is. So there is some, I don't want to say concern, but the public, there is a significant number of public inquiry on what the status is. So those are the 3 questions. And just reiterate.
What are the other timeline possibilities? When is the next newsletter going out?
It would be December, correct?
December, January.
So I got, and I'm sorry, I thought I was following along well. I got basically, do we want to send it to the planning commission public engagement, and what didn't I rate?
The
Oh,
timeline.
timeline. Okay, sorry.
If the council has a, when would they like this to be implemented? Assuming, presuming that there's a change and this is allowed. Currently, just to reiterate, any short-term rental, which is considered a rental 30 days or less, it would be considered a short-term rental, and it's currently prohibited in the city. So without getting into the policy discussion, I'm not really looking for that tonight. As I said, I have discussed it with the council, and unfortunately, Councilor Buckley isn't here to participate in this. I did discuss it with him, and he doesn't really have a lot of input on the process. He's ready to go with the council and address it, but he didn't have a hard feeling as to do it now or next month or the next month. From an organizational standpoint, because there will be additional fees involved, and it's not just one other factor to consider. The reason I would like to have it done by the end of the year is it can then be part of the fee schedule revision. That can be done at any time. In the past, we've amended it at various times when needed. But obviously, kind of as I was talking about before, the contracts, January to January does make nice licensing or clean breaks. But it's really the council's prerogative.
Okay. So, I mean, honestly, I've been the person that's been most concerned about the residents in total who would be impacted, because this really is a zoning challenge. It's a zoning change. It would be a zoning challenge. And it doesn't affect Inspiration or Waterford because they do not allow short-term rentals. So it is just regular Bayport, that the immediate surrounding area around City Hall that would be impacted. So I think of such a, and it's a significant topic, and I'm getting closer to what the current proposal is. I do have things that I would like to see added to that, which would make it more restrictive than less restrictive, but not only in the discipline of people who are operating outside of the bounds.
We weren't going to talk about the
Well,
specifics tonight, but we can.
So, I mean, our ultimate goal here is to avoid any unintentional consequences. So I personally think that it would be in our best interest to make this more clear. Yes, we've had workshops where we don't have outside attendance, and we've had some amount of people show up that want to do this and add this capability to their home. But I'm not sure that everyone outside of the people that want to rent their home are really aware of what this means, what the contract would be, and what the potential impact to their homes. So I would personally like to see the opportunity to just have something in a newsletter saying this is an important rezoning. It's rezoning the city to go from having pure residential to having rental properties right next to you. So I just think that it would be wise on our behalf to have a newsletter article that points people to this ordinance of what the proposed is, and allow more feedback. That would be my option. I don't know if it needs to go back to the Planning Commission. I think that added communication would be a very good idea. I don't think, again, we just faced a different topic where being legal, I think, is a very bare minimum in this city. I think that communication is imperative. And desired timeline, would this have to be January 1? Or could it be starting on, have that communication go out, have people have the opportunity to read about this, and join us at the January meeting and have it take effect at, the end of January. So my preference is, we don't have to go back to the planning commission. I would like the opportunity to have more communication and more input, and if nobody still shows up, so be it. I still think that there needs to be a little bit refinement, but we can do that at a later time. But that would be my preference, is to push this vote until January. So, John.
So first question, we send it back to the planning commission. As a former planning commissioner, my gut kind of told me yes. I think we've got a couple new members that maybe haven't been involved in this yet. The first question kind of morphs into the public engagement aspect of it, and I thought maybe there would be a way to, I don't know if it would even be appropriate, but kind of have that public engagement maybe happen at the planning commission level, where we kind of advertise that the planning commission is going to talk about this, so come and be heard. And that's might get it drilled down a little bit, so when it comes before us, we won't have this gigantic monster to kind of funnel down. Maybe they take a couple layers off the top. And so I'm definitely in favor of the public engagement aspect. I don't know that we'd get a lot of people to show up, but if we put it out in that format that you actually will be heard by city officials, that might carry a little more weight with people wanting to show up, and I'm sure they would show up. The same people would probably show up at a council meeting. And then timeline, my idea is get it as right as we can. The council took a stab at it. I think everybody would agree that what we have now isn't the most desirable situation for everybody. And so get it right, but maybe we're back here in October of 2020 talking about it again, what worked, what didn't work. And I don't want to get into all that stuff right now, of course, but so that's kind of where I am. I don't know but I think having something done by January 1st would be reasonable. I mean, we've got a lot of time between now and then, so I'm done.
Okay.
Connie?
Well, I guess my first thought was it wasn't really necessary to go back to the planning commission, but I'm strongly in favor of getting more public engagement, and if you can do it at a planning commission meeting and cut one, not having to wait till our next council meeting, that's great. I just think I don't want it to come back where people that we've heard from the people that want it. And I haven't heard much from the people that don't, or that maybe don't want it, so I guess I want to make sure that they do have that opportunity. So if that warrants another council or a planning commission, whatever it be, I think we do have to have that one more opportunity for engagement, or whether it be in the newsletter, however we do it. Now, I disagree with you guys on the timeline a little bit. I mean, I'm okay with January, but I don't think we should keep pushing it out. I feel like it has been going on for a long time, and I think the people that are waiting for an answer or waiting for the process to either become and implement it or not, I think we owe them a little bit of consideration not to drag it out too long.
You know what, I agree actually about that. You've changed my mind on that, Connie. I don't think that's unreasonable.
I mean, is there any way we could get it done by December and then have it a vote? I don't know, I just think, well, no matter which way it goes, I just feel like these people have kind of been, whether it be they don't want it or they do want it, I feel like we've kind of left them hanging there for a long time. That's my opinion.
Okay, and Michelle.
All right. Well, so my initial reaction to the planning commission question was, why would we have to go back to them? We've already got their input and they were fine with the way it was before, and we disagreed with them and made changes. So I see the value in potentially getting more input, but I guess my concern is that every other issue that's ever come up, if if there's opposition to it, we will hear from people, and we haven't. So I'm just kind of surprised that if there's this huge opposition out there, we haven't heard more.
No, I didn't say there was.
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
understand that, but I'm just saying, it's like, okay, we've been dragging this out now for
But it's
a
kind
couple
of been in
years.
chunks, here, there, everywhere. It hasn't been a,
Really?
that's how I feel like.
We've had a
I
lot
feel
of
like-
discussions and workshops, and we've had some at council meetings, but again, our council
But-
meetings,
Well, I'm just thinking, you throw out an idea of a dog park, and you hear from hundreds of people. They're out here. You throw out something that you might change at Inspiration. They're all down here, right? So the word has gotten out. It has to have gotten out, don't you think?
well,
That's what
we're-
I'm like surprised that like.
don't
But as
have-
it got, oh,
well,
sorry.
we don't have Inspiration. They're like, this doesn't apply to me because we
Right,
don't allow
exactly.
it. There might, and Waterford doesn't
Right,
apply to me
which
because
may
it
be
doesn't,
why we haven't heard from that many people, because it only applies to a certain
it
number
does.
of homes. But
I do, and I completely understand, but there's a lot of benefit to the people that want to rent their home, and I completely get that. And I think that the ordinance language that we're coming around with is it's probably very close. But there are the next door neighbors that I just, we're talking about quite a large number of nights per year in the current language, and we're talking, I don't know if everyone understands short-term rentals that might not be in our demographic. So I just want to make sure people have the opportunity to understand what this is, and maybe it won't be a big deal to anybody, and then great.
And so, yeah.
I guess, Michelle,
I'm wondering what we do, because that's happened to us before, and you hear from both sides, potentially. And is that enough to go, oh, well, now we're not going to, or now, would it sway you if you heard from nobody? Or you'd be still thinking the same way, right?
Well,
if you had
no,
everyone that wanted it came again, and no one opposed it, would that
No.
change your mind?
My mind is, I just honestly, personally have a few pieces of language that I would like to see
And
firmed.
that's why I feel like we are so close and we've waited so long. Why would we drag it out even longer? And I'm all about like hearing from the public, but I just feel like we have had 2 years of discussions around this, and if they haven't come to us and said something about it by now,
But see,
it just feels like it's not
I
a
have
hot
had
button
people on the
issue.
sideline come, not
And
to the
I
meeting,
have
and ask them, I
too.
said, you need to come, you need to call City Hall, you need to do whatever. So I've had it on both sides, people that are really for it and people that
Right.
aren't. So I have heard after we've had the discussion.
And-
So I guess I just don't want them to come back, if there's somebody really out there that's really against it, or I don't want them to come back and say, well, you didn't give us a time to come back and have a special meeting for that.
Okay, so
I
then
guess
they
that's
come, and then
just-
what happens? Then they come and they
Then-
say,
then-
we
Well,
don't
if it's
want
a-
this in our backyard. Then do we just not do it?
Well.
No, I'm not
may-
saying
I'm
that.
I'm just saying, we gotta think past that step.
But
maybe-
maybe they'll
maybe
bring up
just have
points
them give
of the
opinions of-
language that should be in there that
See, that's
might
what I'd be
help
looking
sway
more
us.
for. I'm not saying one way or another that don't have it because these people come and say they don't want it, but maybe they can have some input on the boundaries or some,
I think
I
it would
don't
be
know. That's-
worthwhile to have them be able to read and digest this prior to us making some kind of decision. And John, I had recommended with Adam that we have a workshop with the Planning Commission to actually talk this out more, but that wasn't brought forward as a possibility. So we do have a hand up.
Yeah, Mayor, forgive me, council members, forgive me for intervening. The one thing I wanted to note, based on the conversation that's going on, and that would be another option. That's not something that we do very frequently, but this would definitely, if the council is interested in doing that, that can be done. Just kind of the question that's kind of being discussed, whether, depending on who shows up, would that sway a council member? I've been very impressed with the council since I've been here of not having your mind made up for any public hearing or public comment. So that's to everybody's, I commend you on that. The part of just taking a step back, part of the principle of the public comment though is the due process, to have the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Someone can come and, we could have a room full of people that represent, out of the 2,500 people in Bayport, 50 of them show up, they feel very passionate about it, that's still a lot of people that aren't in the room commenting one way or the other. But at least the city had the forum, they had the opportunity for, if you did, they can't say they didn't have the opportunity to be heard. So that would be one argument, that they may not necessarily change anybody's mind. It might be a 5-0 vote on whatever the issue is, but the city can't be accused of not affording the opportunity for public comment, for the opportunity for the public to be heard.
And what are our
on whatever
options
issue.
to afford that public comment? Is the best option a planning commission open forum, or whatever it's called?
Well, there would be, through the planning commission, it would be a public hearing
hearing,
with the zoning ordinance amendments. So there would need, the notice would be posted in the Stillwater Gazette, which is our legal publication. Normally, any ordinance amendments would go out to the email list. Now, that's not comprehensive, but the typical, the agenda gets posted before the meeting. Depending on how much time is allowed, based on the timeline, the city can make these things, depending on what, I don't like varying too far from the typical practice, because then we start making exceptions for this issue, but what about the next issue that's important to somebody else, or, so we just have to be thoughtful of that. But that would be, the chair of any meeting, both the planning commission chair and the mayor as the chair, they can decide to receive public comment at any time, on any issue, any topic. But procedurally, the planning commission would have a public hearing that we would have to issue the publication. There's no, typically with a planning commission application, a zoning application, there's a notice that all the surrounding properties, because they're the most directly, they've been identified as the direct impact. Like for the variance that we had tonight, everybody within 350 feet was notified. We didn't, the planning commission didn't have anybody, we had the public hearing show up. That's pretty typical. But that would be the process. The council can, that would be the normal process. The council can vote to change that.
Because we already did that process once. We had the public hearing, we had the planning commission vote on it, came to us, we couldn't agree, so we tabled it. So now we're starting back at square one again with the planning commission and the public hearing. We wouldn't do that on any other subject. It just, to me, it feels like, I understand though, but it feels like we gave everybody the chance already, so I don't know why we have to do it again. But if that's what everybody wants, I'm fine going through that. It just seems like we've been waiting a couple of years for this, and we're just pushing it off even longer. But
and that's not for staff to decide. We present here's the normal
It's,
process. If the council, which it seems like,
I just want everyone to understand why we've already done this. Why are we talking about doing it all again when we've already gone through all those steps? But if people feel like the word has not been out there and people understand what's going on, then we should give them that opportunity. I'm fine with that. It just feels like a delay tactic a little bit to me. Like, I'm not sure why.
That's not how I don't mean it as a delay tactic.
I don't either.
Because I'm the one that said I feel like we dragged it on for 2 years. But I just know that after we did all that, I don't think, sometimes people in the town, it takes them a while to get informed on certain things. They might not know something's happening until the word starts talking. So I just feel like, to do justice to both, I just feel like we should have that level of engagement. And I'm not saying it'll change my mind one way or the other. I'm just saying you're giving those people the right to come in and be heard. I don't know. I just.
But
but
it almost sounds like we're weighing the opinions of people that show up and speak versus what we're supposed to represent the best interests of everyone in the community as a whole, whether or not they come to a meeting or not. So I'd like to that's our role, is to consider, and in this case, we're considering the renter and the person that lives next door to a renter. So I just want to be very mindful that people what, we keep that in mind as we're looking at how we frame this. And then we also just provide people a bit of time. I mean, I bought my home as a residence, and, you know, this is potentially changing that equation a bit. And so I just want to make sure people have the right information, and if they call in or they email in, that has the same, you know, or comment of someone on the street is also just taken into consideration in the process. So as we look at the wording, that we get just more mindful of, you know, both parties. So but I don't know what the best way to do
and
that.
I guess in this engagement, Adam, you're meaning to like bring forth some of the terms in the process that we've been doing, right? I mean, I don't want it just to be another engagement of, I don't want it, you want it. I would like it to be more like, okay, these are the steps we've taken, this is where we've gotten to. Is that what?
If I'm understanding correctly, what would happen is if, for the sake of discussion, if the council votes to, I would take this off the table, vote to refer back to the planning commission, and staff would, and Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but, or direct staff to just take it to the planning commission, the revised proposal, because based on, part of the reason that the council decided to table it in April was we seemed to be farther apart on policy. We weren't coming to a consensus or a majority even of three council members feeling comfortable voting then tonight to pass whatever iteration it was. So the new proposal will take some of what we had and try to, I have my work cut out for me, but to try to devise a new ordinance based on that, that would meet everybody's satisfaction. That the plan, so then that notice would go out, those materials would be available for the planning commission meeting. We would have a public hearing, and the planning commission would, as they're supposed to, should be doing the legwork of zoning modifications. They make a recommendation to the council, then that comes back to the council, and you have it's within your purview to ignore the planning commission, but the intention is that they do the heavy lifting to try to work out the differences, or to make it the best zoning ordinance for the city. Then the council can make further modifications as they see fit, or go from there. But that, as part of public engagement, there would be a public hearing with the typical publication notice.
At the planning commission or? At
the planning commission.
Okay.
And of course, as I mentioned, there would be no public hearing at the city council meeting, but as the mayor being the chair, it's within her right at any meeting to receive public comment if she deems fit. But there wouldn't be a scheduled public hearing.
Right.
We've done that with other issues.
And would you be taking the proposed ordinance language back to the planning commission, the new revised?
The revised language
latest?
would start
and would you
and go back to the planning
take
commission.
any of our comments and our requests?
Yes. So the feedback tonight, and that I've had individually from the council would be that would go into the revision and bring to the planning commission.
And have we had a new planning commission member since the last time we tabled this?
We have three.
Three new?
Or two new.
Certainly two, right?
Yeah, two new. One replaced Councilmember Dahl after his post-election, and then there was one vacancy at the time. So it was if I recall correctly, it was a 4-0 recommendation at the time. Correct.
Or three.
I think it was just three.
It may have only been three.
It was 3-0.
Yeah. 3-0.
I looked it up in March of this year. March 18th was the public hearing.
Actually, it was, yes, sorry, that's correct. Councilmember Dahl had not been replaced yet.
And the new members came on in May, so.
Well, and could we have that planning commission meeting in the next month or two?
Yes, that, staff, I don't have a ordinance language today, but I think I have enough information to,
So could we say
Devise that.
we could vote on this in December, safely say that we'll vote on this in December at that meeting?
if that's what the council, the timeline that.
Because then we
you'd
could
like.
have a policy in place for January 1.
Yes, that would
If-
give
Yeah,
us,
the timing of the policy I don't think is important, because people can join at any point anyway, so I guess I'm not sure it's that critical to have it by January 1. Other than that, I feel like we just
It's-
waited a long time.
it's just more of a convenience. There's no, like I
Right,
said, there's
exactly,
no
but-
rush, there's no,
Yeah,
the one thing, Mayor Senor, is that the next newsletter probably won't come out till after the December meeting, either end of December or January.
Okay.
So, but it would be, depending on what the council does, again, I don't presume too much, but if the council does authorize it, it can be very informative. You know, there should be, because it would be a change to current land use, it would be appropriate to have a informative
Yeah,
article.
well, John, let's start with you. What,
Yeah, I'm kind of sticking to my original guns here. I like personally throwing it back on the planning commission and kind of advertise that public engagement. As much as we love the Gazette and that, and I bet in our residents here, you know, there's maybe 100 people that maybe take the Gazette here, and I bet, you know, maybe 1/10 of that even look to see when these meetings are happening. So I don't know of a better way. I mean, you got some people that are going to respond to social media, some people emails, and find a way to get the word out. This is not your last chance, but this is certainly a big opportunity to engage the city and get your opinion and your ideas out there. And you know, I think the end of the year timeline is reasonable, but not set in stone. If we can't, if it doesn't happen for various reasons, that's fine too.
thank you, John. Connie?
I guess if, to get the public engagement, I guess I'd reiterate that or go back, that I would be okay with having a planning commission, having it go back to them so that we can do the public hearing there. So I would change my mind on that, but I stick to wanting that engagement. The timeline, I guess,
The sooner the better.
the sooner the better,
Okay.
so.
I didn't
Nope,
mean
you
to
didn't
speak
cut
for
me
you.
off,
Okay.
you're fine.
Okay, Connie, Michelle?
I guess if we're gonna have a public hearing, I'd rather just have us have a public hearing, but instead of going through the planning commission again, but just because it would speed it up.
No.
And I
Won't the
would rather
planning
hear
commission
them,
be-
and otherwise I'm gonna feel like I need to go to the planning commission and this.
That's-
So, can we do
I'd argue
that?
The
Planning.
The council can have a planning, or a public hearing, but that normally wouldn't be the process. So that would be a variation from the process to have a
Well,
formal
we're
public
already
hearing. at the
varying from the
council.
process because we're doing it twice.
Well,
Maybe
it
not
was
that.
tabled, which it's kind of now a restart of the process. So I don't know as we're tabling.
Technically, he said that it doesn't technically have to go back to the planning commission when it's tabled. Right, isn't that what you said in the beginning? That
Correct.
Andy said it doesn't have to do that on a tabled issue.
I can propose to the council revised language, and the council can vote on it at any time after I provide it to you.
Mayor, can I just add something?
Sure.
Our administrator had me working on some ordinance, and I have some stuff prepared because we'd be enforcing it. So I already have some things prepared for the council to review, and I'll give it to Mr. Bell to do as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Because enforcement would be pretty key. I had recommended a workshop with the planning commission just to, because it is a topic that has to do with zoning, so if we could get them re-engaged, I would like that. I would like to see it go through that process again, but, so. And did you discuss this with Mr. Buckley? Does he have?
Yes, he does not have a strong opinion on any of the process.
All right, well, we're in consensus that we want to do this in a relatively timely manner, making sure that we get it right. I think you have indicators from 3 of the council members that we'd be very open to hearing and having the input from this planning commission. And so I think that that's the information you were looking for.
Staff would request, and Andy, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I would request that there's a motion to remove from the table and refer back to the planning, have staff bring back to the planning commission.
Okay.
When would the planning commission meet?
The soonest would be the 21st
Of this month?
Of this month, or the 28th would be the other. Some of it's going to depend on who's available.
Right.
If we don't currently have any proposed
So if
business.
we try to rush a planning commission meeting without proper without allowing time for people to know about it, we're kind of defeating the purpose of sending it
If
back
that's
to
the intention of the
commission.
council, November would be the optimal planning commission, and then that still gets you to the council for the December meeting,
Okay.
if that's the schedule.
Yeah.
That would be a staff recommendation.
To go to November.
If it's decided to go back to the planning commission, it would be a better product,
Okay.
better process to have the planning commission in November consider it, and the council in December.
Okay.
And in the meeting minutes of whatever meeting that we had where it was tabled in April, those minutes include the ordinance that was proposed at that time, the ordinance language?
That packet, yes,
Okay.
did, from the April 1st meeting.
Okay.
So those are
So if
available
people
online.
wanted to get an idea of what was being discussed and was along the lines of what was being thought of, that would be a good place to go. The
Sure.
April 1st council meeting
And
packet?
yes, the April 1st council packet was the previous version.
Okay.
Well, that's what the city presented to us, but we had a lot of changes, so
Right.
I'm not sure that's a great starting point for them, because we had a lot of input, so,
There will be significant
yeah.
revisions to it, but some of it's, I think that the things that matter the most to the council members, I think it'll look significantly different, but I think it'll be, some of it's just the structure, the level of detail in some of the areas that seemed, I don't know if the best bang for the buck is being achieved by the requirements.
I think some things were very specific and some things were left were vague. And so if we can tighten that up, I think that would be helpful. All right, so is there a motion on the table with an action?
Did you say the motion would be to untable it? And then send it, okay. I'll make a motion to untable the short-term discussion or whatever it was and send it back to the planning commission for an open hearing. Yeah, no?
Can you make it into 2 motions?
Yes, I can.
It's non-debatable to take it off the table, but someone make a motion to take
Okay,
the item off
I'll
the
make
table.
a motion to take the short-term rental notice off the table, or proposal off the table.
I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Connie. Thank you, Michelle. Do you need a roll call?
No.
Or no?
just-
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, second part of the motion?
Now I'll make a motion to take the short-term proposal back to the planning commission
Okay,
For a
thank
public
you.
hearing.
for a public hearing. Thank you, Andy.
All right. Thank you, Connie. Is there a second?
I'll second that one.
Thank you, John. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the discussion. Thank you for Adam for leading that. So,
Thank you.
okay, and that takes us finally to our city council liaison reports. Start with Michelle.
All right, the Cable Commission did meet on September 16th, and we reviewed the audit with Red Path, and everything was great. They have the same kind of issue as we do with the small staff and the overlapping responsibilities financially. We also got to see the new Valley Access Channel website. I don't know if anyone's checked it out, but they're working on making that much more user-friendly and posting a lot of the videos that they'll go out and make, and you can go watch them online, and they've got a calendar, and we're hoping to connect it to some of the streaming, and so they're really working on it, making it a lot more user-friendly. And we spent quite a bit of time discussing some new FCC order that is kind of going against the contract that we have with Comcast, so it's a little bit messy. Penny Mealhouse, the director, should be reaching out to each city to talk a little bit about how each city uses the free cable service that they're allowed. So I think we have City Hall, the fire station, and the library all get free cable right now, but I don't know that we're using it in any way. So anyways, that's on the table for them to take away from us or charge us for that. And also iNet locations, which is a little confusing to me, but I think it's like sort of a hub where some of the stuff gets relayed through back to the Valley Access station. But we've already figured out ways around that, so with all of our portable taping or videoing and stuff. So anyways, that was about it for my actual liaison. I've been doing quite a bit with just city-related things. I had the chance to go to the Future of Stillwater meeting. Did anybody hear about that? So Chamber put it on. It was down at Lowland for breakfast, and really interesting to hear how pedestrian and bicycle friendly they're trying to make downtown, and with the changes that they're gonna have to make to some, like they're gonna make Water Street a one-way, and they're trying to beautify the whole waterfront a little bit more and making walking paths, and I don't know, it was just interesting, a lot of good questions people asked, and of course Derby Days, and today I was at the farmer's market. Yesterday was the art fair, so you volunteered at the art fair for the weekend too, so been kind of a busy time, but it's good, I like it. I'm involved in the community, so.
Very good, and Derby Days was a wonderful success, so congratulations.
It was a lot of fun, thanks
So to
everyone.
BCAL and the Lions and
Yeah,
like
great.
tons of organizations, so thank you.
Thank you.
I did not have any outside activities as mayoral responsibilities, so enjoyed, the local activities that were taking place. So I'm going to turn it to you.
Okay. I did not make the last library board meeting at the last minute. I had an emergency come up, so I didn't make it. So I have nothing to report but what was in Jill's report.
Okay. Thank you, Connie. And
I was absent from the September Middle St. Clair Watershed meeting. I do have the minutes, and something pertaining to Bayport is the, I don't know if everybody's seen it, maybe Adam, kind of the inconclusive test results on the E. coli in Peril Creek. And so looking to suspend it for 2019 due to a variety of factors and start back up next year. And plenty of time between now and then, but we did, and I don't remember the financial outlay on the city's portion, but we did kind of partner with them on that, and I know they would be looking for us to partner with them again on that, and we can get more details of why it was inconclusive and that stuff at that time too. Excuse me. And there will be no October meeting due to lack of business. Other than that, that's it, and so something we'll have to discuss in a future meeting.
okay, thank you, John. Mr. Bell.
Fire Chief Adams, hobble up, please.
Thank you, Adam. Madam Mayor and Council, for the month of September, our call volume was 97 compared to 99 in 2018. The 2019 year-to-date total is 950 compared to 974 in 2019. Our monthly drills consisted of quarterly SCBA and advanced auto extrication with our new rescue truck. and fire inspections and plan reviews are ongoing. We had Washington County Fire Chiefs meeting, the 9/11 tribute along I-94, the Derby Days fireworks standby, Stillwater Area High School homecoming carnival and game, and then we attended the Officer Parisi Memorial Service. Upcoming events is this week's Fire Prevention Week. Hopefully people saw that in our calendar that we sent out. We have an open house this Saturday, October 12th from 9 a.m. to noon. We'll have some light refreshments there and demonstrations of some of our equipment. We did go over Chuck Oswald's retirement party, or retirement tonight, and thank you for presenting that to him for 20 years of service. The safety tip is fall has arrived in St. Croix Valley. We'll once again have beautiful fall colors to see. However, as a reminder, burning leaves is not allowed in our coverage area. Information on recycling yard waste can be found on the city's website, so we want to encourage that. With that, on a personal note, hopefully I'll get rid of this hobble this Thursday and be back to normal after 8 weeks. So it's been a long 8 weeks, but I'm doing better. So with that, I stand for questions.
Glad to see you up and about.
Yeah.
So, any questions for Chief?
Good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Welcome back, Chief. Chief Eastman.
Evening again, Madam Mayor and Council. So September 20th and 21st, I attended the 100-year anniversary, and we also had staff over there. Officer Cornell was over there for a while. It was great. We talked about that a lot last time. It was just a wonderful video of people that attended, like Pete Miller and Beth Utek, and they were on there talking about what they did. It was really neat. And I think that's going to be released on YouTube eventually. So when it is and it's available, I'll share that link on my update. So, of course, Derby Days was excellent. BCAL did a wonderful job. We had reserves at the duck race and officers there, dance, and down to the Lakeside Park and over by the fire.
Thank you.
Fireworks standby. We had training on September 26th. We had scenario range training. And then, of course, I just wanted to, I put the Safety Camp National Night Out donations on here. I didn't do it last month because it was a very long meeting, and I'm going to have to get it through because I missed doing that and I didn't want to take up too much time. But I want to add whether people presented or provided food, beverages, equipment, their time, I want to recognize them, and that was Anderson Windows, American Legion, Bayport Fire, Bayport Printing, Bayport Marina, Brett Art, Carbonis, Cummings Law, Sally Deline, Sue and Madison Davis from Bayport here, Department of Corrections, Stillwater Prison, Filson Dental, First State Bank, Hensler Ortho, Holiday Station Store, Kowalski's, Let's Go Fishing, Not Just a Cafe, Regions Trauma Unit, Stillwater Area Swim, Stillwater Police Department with Officer Wolfing and his K-9 that's retiring this year, Target Corp, Walmart, Woody's Bar and Grill. So I just had to get that in, and I appreciate all their time. Shawnette Doggett is missing from here, but she also got a thank you. She's with Regions, and she also does the bake safety with us. I attended Alice training. Dustin Vincent actually provided that for St. Croix Prep, and I was there with Sergeant Jackson, and he does an amazing job with that Alice training. He's really up to speed, and he's just a wonderful presenter on that. And if you don't know what that is, it's active shootive response, which is good all the way around because we'll be close to that area if we need to go up there and respond and help them with anything. Upcoming events, we have our qualification shoot required by the Post Licensing Board. That's coming up the 17th. And then Halloween, I just want to remind everybody, we are not having an open house this year. We will have officers and reserves posted in quadrants throughout the city with glow necklaces and candy, and we'll make sure we're doing a lot of area checks. Due to the passing of Kilo, we're going to let Sergeant Jackson have some time with his family because that's usually what was the big deal of our event. So that's great. It'll be the first year in I don't know how many years since his children are born that he's going to actually do some trick-or-treating with them. So, total incidents to date when I put this memo was 5,229. That's either self-initiated or calls that we received, area checks, vacation checks, vacant building. Miscellaneous facts, which I also post on our Facebook. It's just the crash facts from 2018. Basically, speed was the highest, and then failed to buckle up. Impaired driving was 84, and distractions was 29. So just a reminder, hands-free lock, get rid of the distractions, wear your seatbelt, and please slow down. I stand for questions.
Any questions for Chief?
I just wanted to commend you and your staff. I wasn't at the September meeting, but with school having started, I just noticed a lot of vehicle traffic in and around the school during that time. People's excessive speed and intersections, confusion, and it's pretty crazy if you go down there at school pickup time. And Chief Eastman and her staff really stepped up and made it a much safer situation just by their presence, and so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Councilman.
Any other?
Do we need to remind people that there won't be anything at the police station on Halloween?
That's what I thought I just did.
Oh,
Yeah.
did you?
We're
Did
not
I hear
having
it?
the
And I-
Halloween
did I miss
open
it?
house.
She said it.
Oh
She
my
said
gosh,
it.
I was waiting for her to say it, and I'm like, I never heard it.
But hey, again, thank you
Okay.
last year for volunteering with us.
Yeah, we should talk about, I can get volunteers for next year if you wanna do it.
We're looking at options for maybe a haunted house somewhere, maybe at the
Okay.
beach house, or doing something a little bit different. So
Okay, all right.
stay tuned.
Let me know if you need.
Excellent, thank you,
Members of the
Chief.
council, Mayor, one item I just want to refer to in Chief Eastman's report. You'll see the call log there. It's kind of extensive this month. If you recall, last month it was just the totals. So we're still trying to narrow it down format-wise, so it's a little less paper, and but still get some of that information. But it does show just this is only the last month's worth of calls. There's quite a few there. You can see the variation of what the PD has to address.
I think it's
With that-
always,
sorry.
it's always interesting to see the variety. I mean, I think that people, if they really were to scan this list and see what makes up, the variety of calls and things that your team addresses is so diverse, and the volume is very high. So thank you. And I think sometimes this detail is really great if we can at least keep it online for people to be able to scan. Maybe we don't all get so many copies, but I find
Last
it-
year was a link, or last month it was a link, but there was I received a couple comments of where's the rest of it. So there's a new reporting system that PD has through the county, and so that's the format has changed since the past, but we're narrowing it down.
Okay, great. Okay.
With that, Public Works Director Klein, please.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, Public Works staff is working towards fall preparation, obviously. Not that you'd know it today, it was pretty nice out. So mowing grass will be ending and street sweeping will be starting. We also did some street patching lately, which was much needed. Derby Days, as already discussed, was a busy time with mowing, setting out tables, prepping the ball field, cleaning the park. We also put out extra recycling containers and labeled them specifically for, as requested. Flowers are done for the year. They were taken down today, which might be the latest that I've seen them up. Just a couple of the projects that are going on right now. The 2nd Avenue North Drainage Improvement Project has been delayed not only by weather, but CenturyLink had to lower a line that was in the middle of one of the infiltration basins. That's gotten done, so hopefully that project will move along quickly, especially since winter's coming. Hydrant painting occurred. We've received multiple comments about how well they look, and it was very affordable. What else? Emerald Ash Borer, just to touch base on that again. The Department of Ag will be coming out probably sometime this fall to help us do like a drive-by and identify any of the ash trees that are affected by the Emerald Ash Borer. And so that'll help us put a plan in place here probably this winter on procedures moving forward and what measures we want to take. do want to remind people the river is back up to, it'll reach 685 feet today, which is about 10 feet over normal pool. There's a slow no wake if you're boating, slow no wake in place for anything over 683. And then finally, Lakeside Playground update. The equipment will be shipping October 18th. We will likely be removing the wood structure that's currently there the week of the 21st, and sometime after that, hopefully before the end of October, the new structure will be up. So
get your photo ops in.
Yes, and we actually, at the Public Works Department, this is kind of funny, Tim will get a kick out of this if he's watching. We have a picture of the original when it went up in from 1982, and you can see the trees in the background that are now like 100 feet tall, right? And they were like super tiny in the picture. Cool. So, I'll stand for questions.
Any questions?
I want to tell you thanks for all that you do for Derby Days, you and your team. I know it's a lot of work, and you take a call or two from me at least every year because it's Derby Days. But I just had a question about that ash borer.
Yep.
Is it just the city property that they'll come by and look at, or is it residential?
We will, so they will try their best to look on some private property, whatever they can see from the street.
Oh, okay.
So it probably won't be significant. That'll be one of the other questions, or one of the things that the city will have to decide to. Our code doesn't specify emerald ash borer, but we do have tree maintenance code for diseased and dying trees. So essentially, if there's a tree that diseased or dying on somebody's property, it's required that they take it down. Now, we don't go driving around and enforce that, but if we get a complaint on it, then we do go out and look at it and send the resident a letter.
Okay.
It's maybe something for people that would recognize an ash tree to do a little digging on the internet, and there's lots of stuff to look at, and maybe be proactive if you have a tree that's high value to you in terms of shade or location.
Yeah, and we should be able to provide a little more guidance on that this fall. Once emerald ash borer is in your area, it's very unlikely that if you have an ash tree that without treatment it's going to survive. It won't survive essentially. So.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ben.
Assistant Administrator / Planner, Sarah.
Thanks. A quick update on the Planning Commission. The term expiration for members Colleen Siegfried and Aaron Oakes expires December 31st of this year. So both have expressed interest in reappointment, which is great news. So this will be brought forward to the council in December. I just want to say thanks again to Colleen and Aaron for serving in this capacity. It's quite hard sometimes to find members to volunteer for the Planning Commission, so thank you. The Land and Water Legacy Project, the title searches have been completed, and the closing on the land acquisition is anticipated for sometime next week. We're working through the details on that. Following closing, the next steps will include asbestos testing of the existing houses and accessory buildings, potential mitigation of the asbestos, and then proceeding with demolition or coordinating with the fire department for a training burn if that's feasible. Staff is hopeful that the asbestos and demolition still can be completed yet this year. Last week I prepared and submitted an application and program work plan for the Water Efficiency Grant Program offered by the Met Council that we talked about last month. I received notification that our submittal materials were accepted and will be notified by December 2nd if we're selected to receive grant funding. If selected, we'll begin implementation of the program work plan, and it's anticipated the rebate program would launch in March of 2020. So more on that to come. Matt and I also worked together last week to submit 2 Emerald Ash Borer grants to the DNR for preparation and response efforts to EAB. A potential of $130,000 is actually available to assist with tree inventory, management plan, tree removal, replacement, and treatment. So we will be notified by October 25th if we're selected to continue in that grant application process. Last week, I also attended training on preparing for the upcoming presidential primary election on March 3rd of 2020, so everybody should mark their calendar for that. The Secretary of State's office reported that 4 major political parties are anticipated to be on the ballot, and this is a change in the procedures. When registering the day of the election or voting absentee, voters will actually be required to declare a political party preference, and then that will dictate which ballot they actually receive. So since this is quite different than normal elections, we'll be doing some more education and outreach than normal on voting procedures to help prepare people for election day. So look for updates in the upcoming city newsletter to talk about that. Other than that, I stand for questions.
Do we have any reason why they're asking that this time?
So you're only allowed to vote for candidates in one designated political party versus cross-voting over multiple parties.
It's always been that way though, hasn't it?
Correct. Well, this is a little bit different in that there was only 2 major political parties, and then you couldn't cross-vote over those 2 parties. There's 4 parties now, and before you didn't have to declare your preference at the time when you're receiving your ballot. Both parties were on the ballot, and then you just vote in line with that. This will be specific to your political party, and then the candidates in that party will be only on the ballot.
Is there a process for keeping that confidential in terms of what, I'm just trying to get a feel for how that's gonna look for, you know, if I get a pink ballot and Connie gets a green ballot or whatever.
There's a lot of talk about that right now, and that's one of the skepticisms of this whole process of data confidentiality. So thankfully, the city is not tasked with keeping that data. Both the county and the state will deal with that end of it. But I know that is going to be a complete change for people having to admit that to the election judge on the day of voting or absentee. So like I said, it'll be a change, and I think a surprise to a lot of people. They'll have to declare that at the time of voting. So we want to do some more outreach on that to educate people of the process so they're prepared on election day.
I know a while back, fairly recently, you were asking for help, election judges and stuff like that. Are you fully staffed and in training and all that kind of thing?
Thanks for the question and bringing that up. That's a good plug. So typically I have an adequate amount of election judges, but this falls usually during snowbird season, this election, when I'll have a lot of people out of town. So if people are interested, please contact me and I'd be happy to take applications.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Super. Great. Thanks, Sarah.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mayor, members of the council, interesting time. We've gone through a lot of what my report was going to include. Staff also met with MnDOT last week to discuss the median in front of the school, the center median between 2nd and 3rd Avenues as part of the infrastructure project in 2020 and the MnDOT project. We are going to have soil in the middle, and so we're working with that. It got designed as concrete, but we pushed back and we got them to allow us to get soil. So there will be some type of vegetation. We can't be more than, what was it, 18 inches tall. So no trees. We can't have any type of planters or anything, which we were considering or looking at. But there will be some type of, beautification instead of just a curb. So we will be working with that. The state also has, MnDOT has people that we're going to be working with to designate what works best. As you know, 95 does have salt, sand. There will be a maintenance issue that we'll have to consider. But it'll be just in the middle 100. It's about 300 feet long, but it has to be 100 feet back from any crossing. So it has to be 100 feet from 3rd and 100 feet from 2nd. So the middle 100 it'll look something alive, at least for a few months out of the year. But it'll be better than just a slab of concrete. So that was good. We also talked about some of the public engagement for the MnDOT project. And as you saw in my report, they'd like to have a separate business owner meeting. So we'll be working with them to schedule a business owner meeting by the end of the year, specifically for the business owners, because they will have customer impact as far as the parking and access to all the businesses on 95. And then later in March, they will have they'd like to have just a general public open house to discuss the project. Obviously, the city isn't prohibited from ever communicating this, but we want to encourage additional communication as well. The current plan is to have it construction start in May of next year through the summer. Actually, it's through October. It's going to be a long. Now that includes from 94 to 36, so that's the whole stretch. But it's multiple phases, as well as we're doing our infrastructure during that same window. It would be nice to be able to coordinate while this part of the road is tore up. That's when we're changing out the pipe and et cetera. But that may not occur perfectly. So we're trying to coordinate that still. The other big impact will be the Memorial Day parade. We will not be able to have. They already said they will not approve a midnight permit, which we are required to get every year for the Memorial Day parade. So we're reaching out to the parties that organize it to have it rerouted for this next year. We're still going to have one. We just need to have it on a side street, start there, and we can still get it to the cemetery. So we'll be working on that. We have some time, but I know that's a lot of coordination. That's what we're working with public safety and the groups involved. Matt already mentioned the playground equipment. One of the things we're eligible for an employee safety grant through our safety consultants, and as part of that, we've been looking at making some upgrades to our city hall facilities, as well as the old fire hall and public works. We have kind of antiquated, familiar with the push button locks. They're not the greatest, so we're looking at making some upgrades in there. Originally, we were going to use the grant money for this employee safety to use for that. The deadline was in October, but there'll be another deadline in December. The two first quotes we got for those upgraded locks was substantially a lot more than what the grant was worth. So it is still something that has been identified as something we do need to improve for City Hall security, but we're planning on bringing that to the council, that topic for the locks. There are other items that we can use the grant money for. So with that, I stand for any questions. We've covered quite a bit.
Questions for Adam?
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Just quick on MnDOT. Construction starting in May and open house in March of 2020. I mean, in terms of the public having any interaction or having any input on possible changes, will that ship kind of already have sailed by that point, or it kind of is what they're going to present?
Yes, so this will be the final, this will be, here's what's happening. Here's a couple months in advance of, this is the project. We're well past the public input point with that for the actual project.
Yep.
So, good question.
Do we have any resources in terms of just pictures and things like that we can post right now, or is it?
Well, we have some preliminary materials from the open house that the city had regarding the bike lanes, which had some of the overlapping information. And we've had a couple for the infrastructure portion that the city's doing. We have some information on that as well. We've been working over the last couple months with MnDOT. It's taken them some time to get to the final plans. But we will have that available. We'll have a separate page on the website for this project, both the city infrastructure and the MnDOT, the roadway portion. And so when we roll that out here soon, we'll be able to make all that available. And so we'll have visuals and that type of material as well.
Okay.
During the bridge project, they were good about posting updates of what was happening and what was happening next. Can we anticipate that kind of communication from them?
I don't have any specific information, but I would imagine that anything that we do, the city's been waiting for some time. We don't really have a lot to report until now. We just met this last week. So.
Right, but they actually proactively kept their website up to date of what was happening and what was happening next and where there were closures. And so it would be really nice if we could ask them to do that, because otherwise you're going to be flooded with calls.
Yes, when we get to that point, we will be demanding that type of input.
Is there also yet a median on the north end of town?
Yes, so there'll still be an entrance median on the north end. If you recall, we were looking at, right just north of 5th and 6th, between there. The south one, if you recall, was they decided with MnDOT to not pursue. But there will be a small median. That one I don't believe has any, we're not able to beautify that one.
Because it's not long enough. Okay.
And we are still, the plan does include the RFB, the rapid flashers at the school crosswalk. And that's kids, I saw multiple groups today crossing there to go to the park. It was such a beautiful day. So that will be a much increased safety factor for that crosswalk.
Still encourage everyone to use those flags. Even at night, it is challenging to see at certain intersections in town. So just please, everyone, continue to use those flags when you're crossing day or night. And anything with the railroad?
Yes, I meant to mention that. I'm waiting to hear back on the railroad. It's all the paperwork's been submitted. It went to DC, so it's not a local person, but it's being processed. So hopefully we'll hear something soon.
Besides train whistles.
We'll hear something. Sorry, no pun intended. But hopefully the pain is coming to an end soon. So.
Any other questions for Adam? Okay, if not, any last comments from the council? I'd like to congratulate Anderson Elementary on their 100 years. Their celebration was great. I think it did add our traffic for Derby Days as well. So it was really fascinating. They did a nice job. And to all of BCAL, once again, thank you very much for the effort. It was a great event, and everyone needs to take in those fireworks. And they're amazing. And we have room for more people to watch them down there at the park. So
yeah, and thanks all the donors that helped make that happen, including the city. We always approved a nice little donation, so it helps because they are not cheap, but fun.
Yeah. Very good. Anything else from the council? If not, would someone like to make a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Thank you, John.
I'll second.
Thank you, Connie. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Meeting adjourned.